Hello guys, welcome to my channel Lucid Fanfic, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. So be sure to stick around until the end. Now let's get started. Momoyozu, the young heiress to the Yaoyorozu family and class representative for UA High's prestigious Class 1A, is in hell. What was meant to be a test has turned into her worst nightmare. Her class was sent over a cliff to make a trek to the actual training camp. During the journey, they were attacked by earth beasts created by one of the wild pussycats, and for a time, the students fared well. But then suddenly she was no longer with the class. The students panicked upon learning this and couldn't find her. They figured their best bet was to find their teacher and the WWPC. So off they raced through the forest, fear in their hearts. For already they lost one classmate earlier this year in Tenya Ida to the hero killer stain. If they lose another, it spells doom for them and UA combined. Momo was now in a cave filled with varying crystals, and as she walked, she soon came upon some various rooms filled with arcane relics. Confused and curious, she began searching through the rooms to try and find something to help her make her way out. As she had burnt through her lipids, she couldn't create anything to aid her. But upon doing so, she entered a room that was currently occupied. A man cloaked in black and red robes was there. "Pardon me, sir?" she asked, and they twirled around. "Who dares enter my cave?" The man boomed in rage, scaring her. She squeaked back, scared of the man and his anger towards her. "Aha, Momo Yaoyorozu. I did not mean to enter here." She stammered out, only to be interrupted. "I care not who you are, girl, nor your reason for being here. All intruders must pay the price for encroaching in my territory." The being bellowed furiously with massive amounts of killer intent radiating off of him. Momo screamed and turned to run, only to be captured by some unseen force. The man cackled like mad as he pulled her towards him as her panic overwhelmed her. She was too scared to know what to do. No one was with her. She had no lipids left, and she was now in the grips of a villain. She began to beg and plead for leniency, but the man refused. He lifted a hand, and with it a cage was formed out of thin air. She was tossed inside it as the man raged and began ranting incoherently. After an hour, he seemed to calm down and removed his hood. She saw an old man with white hair, one green eye and one red one, scars across his face and a scraggly beard. "Are there others with you? Or did you foolishly try and conquer me all by yourself, child?" he demanded, as Momo trembled and shook her head. "I'm all alone. I don't even know where I'm, nor who you're," she stuttered out as she huddled in a corner, weeping at her fate. The man howled with laughter before he vanished in a cloud of smoke. An hour passes before he returns. Smiling viciously, he walked toward her improvised cell. "It seems you spoke the truth. Ha! How foolish you are, child, to enter the home of the ancient demon Jigen. It's been many centuries since anyone has found this ancient cave. Ha! Now you become my worker," he said in a venomous voice, terrifying the girl further. "Demon? Worker? Why, I did nothing wrong," she shouted in terror as the being known as Jigen laughed at her. With a vicious sneer, he raised a hand and snapped his fingers, making all her clothes disappear as the girl screamed. Momo was crying, as this man has so many powers and she can do nothing. She began begging for him to let her go as the man laughed while eyeing her body lustfully. "Let you go? Oh no, child. I can't have you go and find others to return to my home. You shall be mine forever. It's been many years since last I had a guest. I think I'm going to enjoy this, hee ha ha ha." He cackled as he walked up to the door to her cage. She curled up, hugging her knees to her chest, trying to preserve some form of modesty. Her heart beating a mile a minute. Is this to be my fate? To be used and abused by some old man in this place? What did I do to deserve this? She thought as tears flowed from her eyes. "Please, someone save me. Take me away from this place. Save me from this beast," she begged in her mind as the door to the cage was opened. Meanwhile, in the forest, night has fallen, and the WWPC, as well as Shota Aizawa, the homeroom teacher of 1A, were searching the woods for any sign of the Mossing girl. They had contacted UA and requested the aid of All Might and Hound Dog, but they wouldn't be there for another hour. Some of the students have tried to aid them in finding her, but so far not a sign of the girl has been seen. The kids began to panic, and as much as the 5 heroes have tried to show no sign of fear, they couldn't. They were beginning to fear that the camp's location was compromised. Aizawa was on his own, searching the area where the girl was last seen, when suddenly a blinding white light filled the place. After it dissipated, a hole was seen in the very air itself, revealing a cave. He quickly contacted the rest of the searchers and told them to come to him as he was trying to understand what he was seeing. Jigen was cackling as he began to enter the cage and pull off his robe as Momo wept, begging for someone to save her. Suddenly the room was filled with an insanely bright white light, and a powerful voice boomed as a warming, safe feeling filled her heart. Demon Wizard Jigen, let her go now. I've had enough of you and your evil ways. Momo heard the mighty voice of power roar at the old man before her. His face twisted in fear. Not possible. How did you find me? How are you still alive? The man shouted in fear. The light finally dissipating, showing a masked figure cloaked in white robes standing at the door to the room. Momo, for some unknown reason, felt this new stranger was going to save her. Simple Jigen, I have unlocked ultimate mastery of all magics. The boy you tried to kill to save yourself from the prophecy millennia ago is now the most powerful being on this planet. I'm Immortal Jigen. Even you cannot defeat me. Let Momo Yaoyorozu go and face your preordained fate. Momo was confused. Magic? Immortality? Who is this, and how does he know my name? What's going on here? She asked, still afraid of the situation she has found herself in as the white, cloaked man stepped forward. Begone, boy. You cannot kill me. Even if you are immortal, my power is unbeatable. The old man roared in defiance and disbelief of the boy's claims, only for the boy to laugh loudly. Before raising a hand, you have failed to kill me. You have allowed me to become the king of magic. You hid away after thinking you killed me, Jigen. Now you attempt to assault the descendant of the only woman I have ever loved. You have crossed the last line I shall allow. Say goodbye, ancient demon mage, the boy said as his palm glowed with power. A power Jigen recognized all too well, for it's the power he attempted to steal for himself, but the boy before him stole the power away from this world. No, that's not possible. You destroyed that book millennia ago. How are you using that power? He demanded as he stepped back in fear. Who said I destroyed it? I simply hid it from your eyes. Now fall, demon mage, said the boy as he launched the glowing power at the mage, who roared in agony as tears fell from his eyes. His body began to radiate light in all colors before his skin turned black and began to crack apart. In seconds, he was turned to dust, and the dust itself burst to flames, erasing the once powerful mage from existence. Momo was gobsmacked. Somehow the boy just fired off a blast that easily defeated the overpowered, lecherous old man. What? How? Was all she got out before the boy who saved her turned from her and snapped his fingers. I shall explain later, Momo Yaoyorozu. First, please put those on, the boy said as a set of clothes landed in front of her. She then realized she was still completely clothes off and quickly put the clothing on. Thank you, sir, for saving me, as well as for the Lothies. Yuti, who are you? How did you eat that villain? She asked, still scared of the boy before her. You're most welcome. Have no fear, Miss Yaoyorozu. I'm not here to harm you. For starters, I am the Immortal Mage, Izuku, Master of Magics. I'm over 3,000 years old. I used one of my most powerful spells to erase that demon from existence. You see, many millennia ago, magic used to exist in this world. It still does, but most have foregone it in favor of science and then quirks. That villain, as you put it, was once the most powerful mage, and he used his power to destroy and slaughter millions. For the past 3,000 years, he has foregone his desires to live in this cave he created in a pocket dimension to try and restore the spell I used to defeat him, the boy said as he raised a hand to remove the white hood and mask he wore, revealing a youthful face with white hair, blue eyes, and twin diamond freckles. He looked no older than 16. Whoa, you're just a kid? Izuku laughed at Momo's response. No, I'm immortal young Yaoyorozu. I turned off my aging when I became immortal at the age of 16. If you wish I could shape-shift to make myself appear older. Though I prefer to look as I do now. Momo was in utter disbelief at the way this day has gone. But as she stood before the boy who smiled at her, the day's events finally caught up to her as she broke down again, crying hard. She stumbled only for the boy to catch her and hold her as she wept into his shoulder. I don't know if you speak truth, Yuti. You saved me from a terrible fate. She stuttered through her tears. You're welcome, Miss Yaoyorozu. Dry your eyes, young one. I shall return you to your friends before I take my leave of this place, he said gently to her as he pat her back. Momo didn't want this boy to leave. She had to pay him back for what he did. He saved her when all hope had abandoned her. Then he spoke. Very well, but you need not pay me back. If you wish me to stay, I shall. Making her eyes go wide. You can read minds? She asked, shocked at the revelation. That I can, Miss Yaoyorozu. I can do so much more than simply read minds and teleport. If you can think it, I can do it. For now, let's get you back to your friend, shall we? He asked gently as Momo tried to quell her tears and nodded. The two walked out of the room and through the cave. Once her tears stopped, she asked, when you fought the man, you claimed I was the descendant of someone. Who was it, Izuku? Izuku sighed. Her name was Cerulia. She was a very powerful witch. Kind, smart, and caring. She was the princess for the kingdom I was born in. She was the love of my life. After I was nearly killed by Jigen, she escaped the kingdom and took up residence here in Japan 3,000 years ago. I had sought her for millennia, but I learned she had passed away over 1,000 years ago. Since then, I have sought her descendants to protect them. I finally found you after I created a spell to locate her descendant. I warped to you only to find you in the clutches of my enemy. Momo, for some reason, was finding his tale more believable by the word. It didn't sound like a lie. True, it was an incredible tale, but for some reason, she was starting to believe him. As they walked and spoke, she only took notice of the fact she was holding him near the exit to the cavern. Eek. So sorry. I didn't mean to cling to you so much, Izuku. She squeaked out as she let go. Izuku laughed hard at that. It's fine, Miss Yaoyorozu, he said in a soothing voice. Once they reached the exit, they were met with 1A, Shota, Aizawa, the WPC, All Might, and Hound Dog, who eyed the pair suspiciously. As promised, Miss Yaoyorozu, here we are with your teachers and friends, he said, pointing towards them. Hound Dog stepped back, as did Tsuyu and Tokoyami. They felt their animal instincts kick in and feared the power this boy radiated, scaring everyone as they knew not why the three reacted like that. Who are you, boy? Demanded Aizawa. Izuku smiled and waved a hand, and in his hand a book appeared. If the UA staff and WWPC would follow us, I shall explain everything to you all. It's best kept out from the knowledge of her classmates for now. For my tale is long and would change the way of things for their young minds to learn too soon. I shall take us to Truman and Nizu, as they are the only ones who know of my existence besides Miss Yaoyorozu here, he said as the adults looked from one another to the pair before them. Truman? Asked Momo, and Izuku nodded. Detective Tsukauchi. I believe you all met him during the events at the USJ, correct? He asked as the name brought up the memory. Oh yes, but why call him Truman? The heroes asked. For that answer, you'd need to accompany us, said Izuku. Aizawa groaned and turned to 1A. Head back to the camp. Wait for our return students. Vlad King and 1B should be there when you get back. The students, still somewhat worried and ignorant to the situation, wanted to stay before Aizawa glared at them, and they bolted off towards the camp. Izuku smiled and snapped his fingers, teleporting the heroes, Momo, and himself to Nizu's office. This is the story of the greatest wizard of all, Izuku, and the tale of how he changed the world with his might, as well as how he brought about the end of the gods of evil. Well, I'll be. If it isn't Father, what do I owe this visit, and why are the WWPC, Momo, Yaoyorozu, and my staff with you? Asked a surprised Nizu. That worried the staff as they heard him call Izuku father. Hey, Nizu, my boy. Well, it's like this. One explanation later, and Nizu was in shock. I'm dreadfully sorry you went through that, Miss Yaoyorozu, but I'm glad Father helped you. To think you're the descendant of Cerulia. Isn't that a surprise? Now all but Izuku was in shock. Me too, Principal Nizu. Wait, Izuku is your father? Asked a very confused Momo. Izuku laughed, scaring the heroes. Well, in a sense, yes. I created Nizu centuries ago when quirks first appeared. You see, I was fiddling with a spell one day to create a searching chimera to find Cerullia's descendants, and instead it resulted in Nizu being born. Still having some issues on that front. Hee hee. Thud. Everyone panicked when Aizawa and All Might both passed out upon this revelation. Well, so much for my mysterious origins. Sigh. You ruined the joke. I tell father. Pouted Nizu, which made Hound Dog laugh until it was on the receiving end of Nizu's glare. Could someone please explain things? Asked a very confused Mandalay. Why, sure, but first I shall bring Truman here. Said Izuku as he snapped his fingers, summoning Tsukachi, who yelped in shock at being in Nizu's office with a passed-out All Might and Aizawa. He then noticed the WWPC, Hound Dog, and the no longer missing Momo Yaoyorozu. Hi, kiddo, said Izuku, making Tsukachi shriek in horror. Oh dear God, no. Not again. Please, Izuku, I swear I don't know about. Izuku sighed, holding up his hand. It's okay, kid. I found her youngest descendant. That's not why I am here. Tsukachi calmed upon hearing the news. Well, thank God. I was afraid you were going to send me to that place again. Ugh. Wait, you mean the Yaoyorozu family are her descendants? Asked Tsukachi. Well, actually, no. Just their daughter. I'll explain that to them later, as she doesn't know the whole of her past. Now let's wake up the two heroes so I can explain things to them all. Says Izuku as he casts some magic waking up All Might and Aizawa. The two wake up to see Tsukachi had arrived while they were out cold. Glad you sleepyheads could join us. Now if you're done napping all, is ready for me to unveil the truth of this world, as well as my identity, said Izuku as his blue eyes glowed with power. I am the Immortal Mage, Izuku. I was born over 3,000 years ago. The heroes were prepared to bark at his claim until Tsukachi spoke. He speaks the truth. Don't even try to dispute it. Surprising the heroes who decided to let Izuku continue. As I was saying, I was born over 3,000 years ago, in a kingdom of Europe. Back then magic was the power everyone held to be the grandest. Today Miss Yaoyorozu met the man who destroyed the kingdom I am from and tried to rule the world. The demon mage Jigen. He was strong and cruel. He had conquered much of this world in search for the ultimate power. Unlike myself, he was not immortal, but those with vast wells of magic within them live incredibly long lives. In his quest for the ultimate power, he came to my kingdom and killed much of the royal family. Only one was left alive. Cerullia, a powerful witch who took pity on me as a child. You see, back then, Asian people were seen as naught but malformed monsters in Europe. But Cerullia saw the massive well of magic within me. She became my teacher and taught me many spells. Within a year of her stopping me from being killed from the serfs of the day, I was already the most powerful mage in the kingdom. As such, she offered me to be the protector of a forbidden book. This book held the most powerful spells known to man. It also was Jigen's target. Izuku paused to let Tsukachi tell them it was all truth. One day myself and Cerullia had realized we'd fallen for one another. The days passed by in bliss, but when I was out of the kingdom, Jigen arrived and slayed many, but Cerullia had escaped as she went in search of me. She was, however, unable to find me. She fled to Japan, unaware of the state of my kingdom, as I was away in search of the object that would prove my love for Cerullia to the king of the kingdom. I teleported back to find the kingdom in utter chaos. Bodies strewn everywhere. Many buildings caught aflame. I rushed to the castle to find Jigen, slaying the king and demanding the forbidden book. I attacked the demon mage, but I was outmatched in terms of power. I used magic to hide the book from the eyes of Jigen and told him I destroyed it. My ploy partially succeeded as I was hit by a powerful spell. It would have killed me if not for the fact I possessed the book. It left me in a coma for a year. After I woke from my mystic coma, I broke the code of the kingdom and learned all the spells from the book. In doing so, the book became bound to me, granting me near infinite power. Then when I turned 16, I created a spell to make me immortal. For the past 3,000 years, I have been the most powerful human being on this world. But my immortality made me a target from several beings of the purest evil. 7 all-powerful evil gods, and in my travels I have met them several times. I may be the most powerful human, but even I am presently no match for the gods of evil." Izuku spoke, and Momo's mind was being blown with each word. "I spent the past 3,000 years seeking Cerulia and/or her descendants, only to learn she died 1,000 years ago. Then today, I made a spell to find her descendant, and with it, I warped to the forest you all were residing in WWPC. I tore into the pocket dimension that Jigen was hiding, and only to find him mere moments away from raping Miss Yaoyorozu here. I used that ultimate power Jigen sought to kill him and rid this world of his demonic power once and for all. Then gave her the attire you see her wearing and walked out of the cave to meet you all. I was going to leave and work on making my powers infinite, but she mentally requested I stay, as she felt indebted to me and wished to repay me. I will stay, but again, Miss Yaoyorozu, you need not repay me." Tsukachi was terrified as he had forgotten about the 7 gods of evil, which Izuku spoke of. Now as for Truman here. Well, can any of you hazard a guess as to why he's called such? Asked Izuku, as Tsukachi sweating bullets. Because of his quirk? Asked All Might, resulting in Izuku and Nizu laughing hard. Scaring the heroes as Tsukachi sighed. "I'm quirkless, just like Nizu and Izuku here. My ability to detect lies is actually a curse. I found a magical book when robbing a place in the 1870s. It granted me power, but the power is a curse. I am cursed to live until 2874, unable to withstand lies. Literally, when I hear a lie, I'm physically tortured by magical knives bursting forth in my organs. Yet since I cannot die until 2874, the curse heals the organs, refusing to allow me to die." The heroes and Momo all were floored by that. Truman is the curse's title, so I've taken to calling Tsukachi that, especially when he messes up like he did last month when he disappeared from the precinct, trying to hide his presence from me after lying to me. Hee. Let's just say even the vaunted Demon King AFO would fear being in the punishments I dole out to Truman here. All Might coughed hard at that. AFO, how do you know that name? Are you one of his lackeys like Tamura Shigaraki? He asked in a snarl, only to receive a glare and killer intent his way. Tashinori Yagi, I will warn you just once. Watch your thoughts around, father. He has little patience for people barking foolishness at him. No man on earth holds power over father. Yagi, if you wish your secret kept, never do that again. I know who you are as well as your biggest secrets, for I can read minds and have currently read all of your minds. Now, Nizu, my boy, I believe it is time. Everyone froze at the words, an obvious threat behind them, which Izuku spoke. Time? Time for what, Izuku? Asked Momo. Nizu chuckled. Are you sure, father? If you do this, you'll be forced out into the world again. Izuku smiled. How else can I protect and train Miss Yaoyorozu if not in Class 1 alongside her? I mean, I guess we could remove her from school, so I could become her personal bodyguard and trainer until she's ready. But that would sadden her. She yearns to be a hero. I created this school for people like her with a desire to be heroes, so even if I must join 1A and reveal myself to the world for the first time since I created the school, so be it. That revelation was enough to make all the heroes pass out. Izuku sighed and then leveled his gaze to Nizu, who shrinked back in fear. Okay, father, okay. Relax. You're going to be joining 1A, replied a terrified Nizu, and making Momo smile and leap up. Amazing. This is most wondrous news. Izuku, hearing that, smiled sadly. Not exactly, Miss Yaoyorozu. We must first talk with your parents about the truth of your past. Momo was now nervous by the way Izuku responded. The heroes finally started to wake up, and Nizu explained the situation. Aizawa was scared for having Izuku as a student. He looked at Izuku and asked him to teleport himself and the WWPC back to the camp before he takes Yaoyorozu to speak with her parents. Izuku nodded and sent them back, then held out his hand. Well, Miss Yaoyorozu, shall we go? Momo smiled softly and took his hand as Izuku warped them to the front door of the Yaoyorozu estate. Unfortunately for them, they were too late, as upon entering, Izuku held up a hand. Wait, Miss Yaoyorozu. Something's off in this place. Stick close to me, he said as he slowly walked through the home. Momo, scared yet again, stayed beside the Immortal Mage. They checked the home from room to room. Horrors abound were what they found. All the servants and bodyguards were dead. In the master bedroom, laying in a pool of their own blood, were Mr. and Mrs. Yaoyorozu. Mother, father, dear God, no. Momo screamed as she ran to the bodies of her parents and did all she could, but they were already cold. I'm sorry, Miss Yaoyorozu. We were too late. From the looks of things, they died shortly after you left for school this morning, said Izuku before suddenly a fearful reaction etched itself on his face. No, not again. He pulled out a crystal and threw it towards Momo, and powerful barrier was made around her and the bodies of her mother and father. What? What is it, Izuku? She shrieked as Izuku dove to the ground, just in time for 6 swords to miss slicing him to pieces. Curse you, Skullgrin. Why did you come here and kill these people? Izuku roared as a hooded figure wearing bone armor appeared. Ah, so close. I almost had you there, Izuku. I already killed all those here as ordered. Their deaths were contracted by the masters, as was Momo Yaoyorozu's. Your head, though, would make a better prize. Izuku snarled at the monster as Momo wept. From one hell to yet another. What did she do to deserve this fate? Why did her parents have to die? She knew not, but she needed answers. Izuku stood tall and glared at the man. The masters have finally made their move, then have they? The being known as Skullgrin simply nodded as he took off his hood. That they have. They wish to become the new gods of evil. The deaths of all high-powered magic wielders is required for the spell to be complete. So be prepared for our final duel, said Skullgrin as his head was revealed, causing Momo to scream in fear. The monster had no flesh on his head. His skull was visible in a sickly greenish-yellow color. Well, Skullgrin, if that's fact, then I am done giving you chances to change. Just as with Jigen earlier today, it's time I erased you from existence, growled Izuku as that power once more glowed from his palm. Skullgrin, after hearing this revelation, balked and stepped back. No, it's not possible. No way you killed Master Jigen. Izuku glared at the unfortunate bony monster and smiled as he released the blast, hitting the fool dead on. Just as with Jigen, he began to emit light of every color and turned black, cracking into dust only for the dust to burst into flames. Izuku stood up and sighed, snapped his fingers, summoning both Nizu and Truman. We have a problem, kiddos. The masters have made their moves, he said as he dispelled the barrier around Momo, who he knelt beside. I'm sorry, Momo Yaoyorozu. I do not have the power to revive your parents. All I could do was take vengeance for the murders committed here this day, he said with a sigh. Momo grabbed him into a hug and wept hard. Today has been tougher. She nearly was assaulted and turned into a worker. Now her family lies dead at her feet. Why, Izuku? Why did all this happen? She stuttered out between sobs. Izuku helped her to her feet and took her to her room while telling the two to do what's needed. Momo sat on her bed, tears flowing hard. Miss Yaoyorozu, I don't have all the answers, but from what Skullgrin said, the masters, a group of powerful witches and wizards, seem to seek the power to become a god of evil. I've never heard of this spell to make mortals gods, but it appears you are on their list to be called. They can't find you like I did, so they simply killed your family assuming that you'd be here. I'll do my best to protect you from them. I'll train you to become strong. As long as you're by my side, they cannot hurt you, he said as he knelt in front of her, his blue eyes saddened by the fate which has befallen Momo. Can't we just leave and hide somewhere then? He heard her ask. Sighing, Izuku spoke. We could, but then your classmates and UA itself would be attacked and used to bait you out. Then they will slaughter thousands in their efforts to find you. I have peered into your heart. If that came to pass, it would break you. What do you desire, Miss Yaoyorozu? She sobbed quietly for some time as Izuku stayed there, knelt by the bed. To become strong like you, Izuku. Strong enough none can hurt me like Jigen and Skullgrin have, said Momo as she wiped the tears away. Izuku smiled softly as he stood up. While I could do that, Miss Yaoyorozu, I must ask you, if I make you strong like that, would you try and face the ones at fault for your parents' death on your own, to take revenge? Momo sighed. I won't lie, Izuku. I'm very angry and sad, but I'm not stupid. Even if you make me strong, if I let my anger and despair cause me to go after those at fault, without you, it'd end in my death. Wouldn't it? Izuku nodded as he peered into her mind and heart. He smiled softly. You are right. I will protect you and train you. I'll let Truman and Nisa know. I'll place the barrier spell on you again for a few minutes, then place one around the WWPC forest, so as your friend will be safe until the two of us return there. Momo nodded as she sat there. The faint glow of the barrier soon enveloped her, and Izuku left. What made this all come to pass? Why were my parents Cerulea's descendants as well? Izuku knows. I just know it. He can help me, she said aloud. Shortly after Izuku returned and dispelled the barrier. They'll be safe from any masters with a barrier spell there, Miss Yaoyorozu. For now, I shall take you to my home, as it's the safest place on Earth. Momo nodded as she stood up, still reeling from the day's events. Glad, though, that her friends at least will be safe. Izuku smiled brightly at her. Fear not, Miss Yaoyorozu. No one can find my home save myself. She smiled softly as she wiped the tears from her eyes. I trust you, Izuku, she said as Izuku smiled and snapped his fingers, producing a suitcase, and let Momo fill it up with the things she'd need for a few days. Soon as she was finished packing, Izuku grabbed the suitcase and teleported the two of him to his home. Momo was in for a fright, as apparently Izuku's home was on its own planet. Izuku? Where are we? She yelped out as Izuku chuckled. In a pocket dimension of my own creation. No one can find it. I created it to have its own barrier. My barrier spell is one of the forbidden spells that is so powerful not even gods of evil can break. Now, let us step inside and get you situated, showing Miss Yaoyorozu. Momo relaxed a bit and nodded. Okay, Izuku. Feel free to just call me Momo. Izuku nodded as he opened the door to the gigantic mansion that was his home. He took her through the various rooms, showing her to a large bedroom she could use. There was a connected bathroom for her to use as well. Here we are, Momo. My room is right next door. Do you wish to get some rest now? Momo looked a bit panicked for a moment, and reading her thoughts, Izuku sighed. You crave the knowledge I was to speak with your parents, and you together about your whole past, correct, Momo? She flinched a bit as she sat on the bed. Yeah, Izuku. I need to know, as it makes no sense. Izuku sighed before he sat next to her. This isn't an easy tale to tell, Momo, but you see, your true parents were killed in a car wreck one night outside their winter home. The police and doctors were amazed at you somehow surviving the crash. Unable to find anyone related to you, the Yaoyorozus, who were both born infertile, offered to adopt you and kept the truth of this hidden. They were most likely slain because the masters believed, like you, they too were powerful magic wielders, when in fact they were unable to use magic. They never told you for fear you'd reject them, but they also never knew the truth of things. Your parents were slain by a mage, but they cast a protection spell with their very vital fluid on you that he was unable to break. So he put the three of you in a car and crashed it in hopes that it would result in a big enough blast to break the barrier. Fortunately, the Yaoyorozus got to you in time to save you from it, as if they had not, then it easily would have broken the spell, killing you. Momo was shocked to learn that she lost not one, but both sets of parents to evil mages. She couldn't take much more of this day. Am I cursed, Izuku? She asked as Izuku shook his head. No, Momo, you're not cursed. She looked at him and sighed. Then why has all this happened to me and my families? Izuku shook his head. For the stuff with Jigen, it was merely bad luck. Any of your class could have been the one to find the pocket dimension. But for the deaths of both sets of your parents, that is due to you being a powerful magic wielder. Greedy mages always try to sacrifice powerful magi to further increase their powers. The royal line of the kingdom I was born in are all born powerful in terms of magic. It's not that you're cursed, but that you have a massive amount of magical power within you. Only evil magi would doom others in order to gain more power. But I still don't have the answers to if the masters have managed to find a way to become gods. Yet still they killed your parents because they assumed that the Yaoyorozu was the lineage when it was just you. A simple misunderstanding on their part, but a cruel twist of fate on yours. Momo shut down upon learning this. Simply because the masters believed her parents were descended from the royal line in the kingdom Izuku was from they killed everyone at the estate. Yet she doesn't even know any magic. She sat there for some time, trying to wrap her head around it all before she felt powerful arms wrap her up. Momo, do not fall into despair. I know many things have happened this day, to take the light from within you. But if you give up, if you allow despair to fill your heart, then, and only then, will all this evil win. You will lose what makes you you. While the Ayurozus weren't your birth parents, they raised you with love and care. Your birth parents loved you so much they sacrificed their lives to keep you safe. If you never fell into that pocket dimension, I would never have found and defeated Jigen and found you. I will make you strong, Momo. Strong enough to be a match for them. I will protect and teach you. Never again will I allow evil to leave its mark on you by taking those you care for. You lost everything you knew this day, but you've gained the most powerful human being alive as your bodyguard and teacher. As he spoke, the embers inside Momo that nearly flicked out began to grow with each word. I'll do it, Izuku. I'll learn all you can teach me. I'll place all my faith in you and become as powerful as I can so you won't regret it, she said with full honesty and determination. Izuku smiled as Momo hugged him back. Cerulia, I may have lost you, but I will not allow your descendant to be taken by the evils that took you and your parents from this world. Watch over her as I make her even stronger than you were. This I promise. Izuku vowed deep in his heart as Momo felt the warmth and safety of his powerful yet gentle arms. She slowly felt the exhaustion of the day's events taking hold. Much as I want to keep talking, Izuku, I think I need a rest, she said before yawning. Izuku broke the hug as he smiled at her. Sweet dreams, Momo. Do not worry, as I will be right next door, he said as she crawled into bed to sleep. She bid him good night not long before sleep took her into its warm embrace. It's been a few days since Momo's life had been turned upside down. All the facts of both the world and her families have been hard for her to handle. She's tried so many times to push down her emotions, but Izuku always saw through it. To further her dismay, she can't learn magic in her current mental state. Izuku is helping, but he knows how much pain she is in. He too lost everything one day. It requires time and empathy. He is giving her the time she needs, and is not admonishing her for the way she's handling this. She in her depression sees Izuku as a gilded light in the void of darkness. He sees her not as the descendant of his lost love, but as the damaged girl who has lost everything. He treats her with warmth and understanding. We join them working on Momo's mental health. And Izuku, she says, distraught as her memories are filled once more with the events of the past week. Momo, it's okay. It's not just going to go away. You're in both emotional and mental pain. These types of pains are the longest lasting and hardest to overcome. I know you are hurting. If you try to ignore it or push it away, it will come back and hit much harder, Izuku said as he hugged her. Momo hates to cry as she thinks Izuku will look down on her or see her as weak and refuse to help her. You're wrong, Momo. I don't see you as weak. Damaged, yes, but not weak. I will not ever refuse to help you. You are my student. The only ways I will stop teaching you are if you become a master of magic or you demand I leave truly in your heart and mind. Momo, upon hearing the words, he said the tears flowed like waterfalls. Izuku just hugged her and let the tears fall as he whispered words of encouragement to her, that once her mind is able to withstand the strain, they can work on magic. But he will not work her too soon. He will know when she is ready. Soon as Momo has calmed down, she spoke. Thank you, Izuku, for not viewing me as weak. Izuku smiled as he looked down to see Momo looking up at him with her cheeks flushed. Momo, you're welcome. I will not look down on you for feeling sad or being hurt. You've been through a lot. I understand, as I have been in the same position. Momo's cheeks were flushing more than she realized she's in his arms. His powerful arms and safe embrace. She sees that sun-like smile and goes crimson. She leaps back as she tries to stutter out an apology, making Izuku smile. Relax, Momo. It's fine. I'm not above giving hugs out. Just don't get too handsy with me. I'm cheap but not easy, he says with a wink, making her blush more. Before he chuckles out pretty hard. Momo, you should relax. I feel if you blush any more, you'll burst into flames. Momo pouts as she tries to control the blush. Momo takes a few deep breaths before sighing. I'm sorry, Izuku. I don't have much experience with teasing. I thought you were being serious about that, and I just panicked. Izuku smiles at her. It's fine, Momo. I was teasing you about that to help you get your mind off things. I hope it helped. Besides, you look beautiful when you blush. Hee hee. Momo grinned a bit at the compliment. Thanks, Izuku. Izuku smiles softly. Momo, I believe in you. I will know when you are ready to learn magic. Until then, just focus on healing your mind, he said as he pat her head, before suddenly his face twitches. Summer camp. Little Koda is stepping back from a large muscular man with one eye, as the other is a prosthetic. The man is threatening little Koda, who is panicking. He's so scared he can't think. The man's muscle fibers seem to be bursting from his own skin. He spurs on to attack Koda, but just before he reaches Koda, the little boy was gone. Confused, the Beastral man angrily shouts as he looks around for the small boy. You ignorant beast! You dare to harm a child to please your sick desires? How dare you try and harm those under my protection? He hears above him a voice filled with venom and power, and a powerful pressure filling the air. Who's there? Show yourself, he bellows before he hears a soft whimper. Looking up with a feral fury to find a man wearing white robes and a mask holding the brat he was trying to kill in his arms as he floats in the air. Get down here, damn it! The Beastral man roared as the robed man looks at Koda, who seems to say something to him. Suddenly the man snaps his fingers, and the muscle-bound man was suddenly trapped in chains. He growls and grunts with effort as he tries his hardest to break the chains. What the hell? Why can't I break these? He shouts before the robed man ignores him and lowers himself to the ground and pats the young boy's head. Little Koda, I am Izuku. I know this man is at fault for killing your parents. He is trapped in these chains, and only I can dispel them. Relax, young one. Let's go find your aunties and your cousin Shino, okay? Izuku says softly to Koda, who looks at him in awe. Somehow he can fly, read minds, and made unbreakable chains. Whoever this guy is, he doesn't feel scary but safe. Okay, Izuku, Koda says softly before he wipes his tears away. Thank you, mister. Izuku smiles at Koda and turned away from Muscular and pulls his mask off. Little Koda, I know you lost your parents. Yes, they sacrificed themselves to save others. But they didn't go into that fight in order to leave you. Your cousin and her team didn't adopt you just out of pity. Shino felt pain losing your parents, and she didn't want you to grow up without any family. Oh, I see Tomoko will talk more later, okay? Said the kind and caring Izuku as they fly through the forest. Tomoko was terrified. She's being attacked by villains and a freaking monster. Suddenly, she hears a familiar man's voice in her head telling her to duck. Scared at what is happening, she ducks down just in time for a powerful blast of electricity to slam into the monster, killing it instantly. The villains catching the excess bolts are knocked unconscious. Well, who the hell did that? She asks aloud to then hear Koda shout her name. She looks up to see Izuku flying down to her with Koda in his arms. Tomoko, you're okay. Phew. Here, take Koda, and I'll warp you to safety, okay? I'll handle the villains, just make sure Koda is safe. He is too important to lose, says Izuku in a voice full of care and determination. Tomoko nods as she takes Koda from his arms. Thank you, Izuku. Please save the students and my team. She pleads as she holds Koda somewhat snug. Izuku nods and snaps his fingers, sending her to the remedial students. Now to find all the kids and the WWPC members, he said as he flies through the forests. He sees the WWPC facing multiple opponents and fires off some spells as he shouts telepathically to the heroes and explains the situation. Mandalay was terry-fed that Koda was almost killed, but thankful that Izuku saved him and Tomoko. He snaps his fingers, sending them to the rest. He then goes through the forest, finding all the students he can and sending them to the rest. But then he sees it, one of the students willingly being pulled into a portal. He snarls and launches at top speed to try and reach him, but just as he gets within range, the portal vanished. Damn it, AFO, I warned you to leave these kids be. Now you will face my rage. He bellows so loud, everyone in the forest can hear his passionate fury. He snaps his fingers and warps all the students near him to the WWPC before he warps himself there. Aizawa, the super angry blonde Pomeranian, went with the villains. I saved everyone else, and the villains are captured. Call UA and explain the situation. I'm going to get the boy back and handle the Merchant of Quirks. Izuku said in a voice that told Aizawa if he argues he risks death. Trembling, he starts using his comms to contact Nizu and explain the situation. Izuku goes to little Koda and asks the WWPC and him to follow him to a private room. Once there he speaks. Young one, I am sorry your parents were taken from you. But these people all will risk their lives to save you. To be a hero, you must be willing to sacrifice in order to save and protect. I cannot bring them back per se, as I know no true resurrection spells. However, I can give you two things that can help you. If Shino will allow it, that is. Koda smiles softly to Izuku, as Shino looks on and sees the smile. Izuku, if it will help him, I have no problem with it. Izuku smiles, and in one hand, he produces a spell book and hands it to Koda. Koda, I can see a strong magic inside you. You have a powerful water quirk as well. So here, young one. This book is filled with water magic that if you follow the instructions, you can learn every bit of it. Shino and the rest of the WWPC are blown away. Are you 100% sure, Izuku? Koda is powerful in magic? Asks Shino. Izuku smiles. Yes. Now, he won't be as powerful as me, but he will be pretty strong. I know that will also help his emotional state, but this is the gift that will help the most. He moves his hands fast, and a bright glow started to form above his hand. Suddenly, a big square mirror forms in his hands. He gives the mirror to Koda, who looks at it quizzitively. This Koda will allow you, and any you give permission to use it to see your parents. I made a contract with them. They will come to the mirror and be able to speak with you. I know it won't fully revive them, but this way you can still see and speak with your parents. He says as the WWPC and Koda go wide-eyed and asks if he's serious. Izuku smiles and says to Koda, look into the mirror and say reveal. Koda does as he asks and nearly drops the mirror as he's greeted by his parents. Hi, Koda. It's been so long since we last saw you. We've missed you so much and worried about your safety. When Izuku contacted us, it first sounded like a fool's dream, but he explained what you needed and we accepted in a heartbeat. Koda looks on as tears fall. Everyone heard the voice of his mother, and Koda, finally for the first time, he cried hard. The WWPC looked on as they cried, hugging him before Shino and Koda's parents all said, thank you so much for this, Izuku. Izuku smiled and said, you're most welcome. Koda needed help, and I had the power to do so. I'd stay longer if I could, but I need to rescue the mutt and handle the villains. Shino, please make sure that you don't let Koda practice too much. Once I have fulfilled what I said, I will return and give you something to help. I'll be back soon as I can, he said before he snapped his fingers and vanished. As soon as he warped to the bar, he began to step inside. Tenko, Shimura, release the angry Pomeranian before you face my wrath. He bellowed as he used telekinesis to rip the entire front entrance to the bar completely off and slammed it into the nearby building. The villains screamed in confusion before they saw him. Shigaraki tried to hide it, but just like the others, he was terrified of the white-robed boy before them. He floated to the room, and in seconds used spells to instantly knock out the villains, except Shigaraki. Who are you? He stuttered out, as behind the boy he saw a vision of the Grim Reaper. I am Izuku. Now release the Mutt Tenko. Otherwise I'll get nasty. Shigaraki went wide-eyed at hearing his old name. He stepped back as he remembered also the name of the one person AFO feared. Izuku. This boy just said he is Izuku. Shigaraki screeched and turned to run only for an invisible force to wrap around him and lift him off the ground. He tried to break free only for the force to start slamming him into the walls and floor, wrecking the building, as suddenly AFO speaks up begging Izuku to not kill Tenko for what he did. You dare beg mercy for me all for one? After what you have done to her former descendants. I warned you after the USJ to back off my students. Did I not clearly state what the punishments were enough for you idiots to understand? You have never shown mercy, so I shan't. Instead, I'll beat you and your little bottom BIH here into submission. You hear me, boy? Roared Izuku as he began to use telekinesis to lift all the villains and begin slamming them around. Yes, Izuku, I hear you. Shouts AFO in a voice that quaked in fear. Once the villains had been taken to the point, they were unconscious with many broken bones he released. Them. Now you, Mitsuki's brat. I warned you months ago when you were allowed in UA that if you cause any trouble what I will do. Didn't I? Asked Izuku as he glared daggers at Katsuki. Yes, sir. You did, stuttered the boy. Izuku stomped closer as the ground cracked under his feet. You willingly left with these idiots causing more problems for my school. Katsuki Bakugo, you're expelled. Blacklisted from every hero course in Japan, and your past crimes will be shown all. He bellowed as he snapped his fingers, causing every citizen in Japan to see every crime Katsuki committed since his quirk awakened, and showing him willingly let the villains take him. All while he has a rage-fueled expression and murderous eyes locked on Katsuki. I'm sending you to Nizu along with Mitsuki, so she can punish you further. Goodbye, brat, he said with venom before snapping his fingers. He shouts curses before snarling and warping to the Nomu factory and begins blasting the Nomu to dust with powerful fire magic, so strong there's naught but ash left of the Nomu. Then glares at all for one and cute-eye Garaki. Damn it, Shigaraki, look what you got us into, growled the doctor as AFO immediately fires off full-powered air cannon blasts at Izuku, blasting him through many buildings and killing the copy of Garaki instantly. The air attack itself destroyed dozens of buildings. AFO sneers and uses air walk and begins firing off air cannon attacks all over Kamino, destroying everything in sight. Izuku glows a brilliant blue and flies into AFO in an instant, snatching him by the throat. I refuse to let you finish the spell, AFO. I will no longer allow you to roam free thanks to that retarded golden bunny idiot. You and Tashinori have caused too much damage to society. It's time I end yours and OFA's centuries-long temper tantrums. Never again from this day forth shall your evil roam this planet. He roars as he slams AFO into the ground before casting the ultimate eraser shot into AFO. He watches as AFO screams in agony at the power as his body grows black and begins cracking into dust, which bursts into flames. Goodbye, AFO. As well, Garaki, I know you're listening. If you continue your experiments, you too will be erased just like your master. Understand me? He shouts to the sky as Garaki, who is listening in with a quirk he had been given by AFO to let him observe Izuku. He sighs and agrees to Izuku's one demand. Izuku noticeably calms down after his furious rampage as he looks around all over Kamino Ward. 83% of Kamino lies in ruin. He slaughtered thousands in an effort to kill the unkillable. He's as big a fool as you are, Tashinori. I warned Nana that you were a terrible choice for OFA. He says as he sighs before he warps to Shino once more. It's finished. Lava been taken down, the mutt is saved. He says to her as she smiles at him, thanking him once more for his efforts. He thanks you too, Shino. You don't know how much it means to me that you have taken Koda in. He reminds me of me when I was just a brat. Oh, by the way, here you go. This is a special necklace. Put on Koda and say the amount of time he is allowed to practice magic. For now, no more than 1 hour. This will keep him from overexerting himself. Take care of the young one, Shino. You're not only his cousin, but his mother. I'll try and send you guys some notable heroes to help with your agency, so as you aren't running so ragged. This will allow you all to handle only the most serious cases and them to work on the easier cases, so you have more time to spend together. Izuku said with a soft smile. Shino, being stunned at what he said, shook her head before asking, but who would be willing to help? Izuku smiles at this and says some top 50 heroes and a couple of American heroes in training, but they're strong magicians. One is Melissa Shield. She is quirkless, but I taught her to be a powerful all-around, which who has attack, defensive, and support magic. She not only can help you with Koda's training, but she can help you all with cases and support equipment. She's an amazing inventor. Izuku says, smiling bright. Shino was amazed that he has helped a quirkless woman become a hero, as most powerful people look down on the quirkless. Ah, but you forget, Shino, I too am quirkless. Other countries allow quirkless heroes, but she tells people her quirk is an energy manipulation quirk to avoid the stigma. Not that she's hurt by it, but it keeps people from questioning her powers. Shino nods at that before Izuku tells her the other hero. The other is a boy called Kinjimoto. He has a powerful quirk called Light Sword. He can produce a sword that is composed entirely of light, but can slice through just about anything you all can think of. Granted, I can make stuff he can't cut. However, he also has some support and defensive magic. Between the two of them and my allied heroes here in Japan, you and your team will definitely get stronger and not overexert yourselves. You'll be able to have time off more often and relax. Shino beams brightly at Izuku and thanks him for his aid. He hands her files on the heroes he will have join the WWPC from time to time, before bidding them all farewell and warping back to his home. Momo greets him and asks him how everything went. He sighed and showed her the events of the day. Between that and the sight of Katsuki Bakugo and all his crimes, she is greatly saddened for those lost and affected by the day's events. Thanks, Momo. You got a kind heart, and it's a good thing, he says, smiling at Momo as she blushes from the praise. Before too long, they both head to bed to get some much-needed sleep. The last thoughts in Izuku's head before he sleeps are to what the masters are doing to try becoming the new gods of evil. Momo, however, can't get Izuku out of her mind or the sadness she feels. A few days have passed since the events of Kamino Ward, and we join Izuku and Momo, who have just arrived at Nizu's office. Nizu, not knowing Izuku was going to be coming, yelped when the pair warped in. Oh, it's Father Few. Why do you always show up unannounced? Asked the scared Chimera. Izuku chuckled a bit before answering. Simple. I enjoy watching you freak out when you notice I'm here. Well, let's get on with today's events. We need to place our things in the dorms, as well as introduce me to the kids in 1A. Oh, and have you made any progress on hiring her yet? Momo was a bit confused by the situation, but more so at the last thing Izuku said. Yes, Father. I just finished hiring her yesterday. She will be there when you reach Heights Alliance. Izuku smiled upon hearing this. Very well. Now, Momo, let's make our way to the dorm. Have no fear, I shall decorate the room for you, as it would be fastest way. Momo just blinked before nodding as the pair warped to the doors of the dorm. I'm still not used to that power, Izuku, she said as she gulped. Izuku chuckled before he opened the door for her to enter. Hello, Aizu, shouted Mitsuki as soon as the pair entered. Whoa, did Bakugo get a gender change? Asked Momo upon seeing the blonde bombshell. Mitsuki began cackling wildly. Aizu, did you not tell your girlfriend about me at all? Izuku groaned at that as Momo was knocked out of her own mind. She turned crimson red all over as steam shot out of her ears. Sigh. Momo, this is Katsuki's mother, Mitsuki Bakugo. Also Mitsuki, Momo is my student, not my girlfriend, grumbled Izuku as he slouched down. Momo, finally having rebooted, blinked a few times before absorbing the information. Oh, that makes more sense. Sorry for the confusion. I'm Momo Yaoyorozu, pleased to make your acquaintance. Mitsuki smiled as she winked at Momo. I give him a few days. The old man is dense, but I'm sure he'll ask you out soon. Hee. That second shot near made Momo faint. Izuku coughed before glaring at Mitsuki. You really aren't ever going to stop trying to tease me, are you? Very well then, should I tell Momo here your age, young lady? Mitsuki blanched and swallowed hard. Oh, please don't. Izuku smirked before ushering Momo to the stairwell. Oh, if you don't stop teasing, I'll do that, and so much more, Mitsuki. Now we have rooms to decorate and class to attend. Mitsuki sighed as she led the two to their rooms, which were right next to one another. Once inside Momo's room, Izuku went through some hand motions before snapping his finger, immediately changing not only the furniture and other things inside. He somehow made the room much larger than thought possible. Momo loves the decorations and the newer size of the room. She had hundreds of spellbooks gifted her from Izuku and heirlooms from her mother and father. A new bed, dozens of posters, and custom computers. She was always amazed at the power of Izuku and his immense attention to details. Wow, Izuku, this looks perfect. Thank you very much, she said, beaming a bright smile to the white-haired hero. Izuku smiled and nodded as Mitsuki spoke. Phew, I've never seen you do so much out of simple kindness. You sure you ain't crushing for the hot Momo? Izuku groaned as he glared at Mitsuki. Will you stop that, Mitsuki? You're not going to make me blush. Mitsuki sighed as she snapped her fingers. Well, it was worth a shot. Just don't get her preg. They'll feel free to do me anytime. Momo went crimson upon hearing that as Izuku laughed. Noted. I may take you up on that offer, Mitsuki, said Izuku, making Mitsuki stammer and go red as a strawberry. Izuku chuckled as he went to his room and modified it to his liking. Momo and Mitsuki just shuffled their feet before Momo spoke. So you really want Izuku to give you a child? She asked, making Mitsuki blush and groan. Yeah, now that I think about it, though I know he isn't going to do so. To him, I always been seen as Mitsuki, his sister. Even though we aren't related, he always viewed me like a sister. Momo felt a bit uncomfortable. She wasn't sure how to feel in actuality. She is still trying to work out her feelings for the king of magic. It's fine. I don't expect him to suddenly be up for that. The man has only ever had two thoughts always filling his mind. Finding Cerulia, and after finding out she died, it's been find Cerulia's descendant. My guess is you're her descendant, correct? Asked Mitsuki, who was also shuffling her feet. Yeah, I am. He saved my life when first met. He currently is helping me handle the pain of losing my family before will train me in magic. Mitsuki smiled softly. Well, if that's the case, I know you and I'm going to get along swimmingly. Well, you two should head to class, she said as she excused herself. Momo sighed before visiting Izuku. Only to see his room is literally the entirety of his home. Wow, guess you really love that home, said an astonished Momo. Izuku nodded before he spoke. We need to head to class and introduce myself to the rest of 1A. Momo smiled as the pair left and headed to class. Izuku waited outside while making himself invisible. Momo stepped inside and smiled at her class while heading to her seat. Aizawa spoke for a bit before he told Izuku to enter. Izuku stepped inside after turning his invisibility off. The class was confused as they had not seen him without his mask. Hello, 1A. I am Izuku. I'm glad to meet you all, he said as he stood at the front of the class. All eyes on him, except for Mineta, who was turned around staring at Momo. Sighing, Izuku snapped his fingers as when he did chains shot from the floor and wrapped around Mineta while yanking him into the air. Listen up, Grape. You're already on thin ice. If I were you, I would stop the perverted CRP before I lose my patience with you and turn you into a squirrel and feed you to a cat. The entire class, minus Momo, was shocked to see Izuku use his powers. Mineta, however, was presently pissing himself before Izuku let out a mad laugh. Oh, you poor Grape. It seems you don't believe me, he said while grinning like a madman. Izuku placed his hand on Mineta's head, and in seconds Mineta was transformed into a squirrel. The class jumped in shock before Izuku snapped his fingers and Mineta reverted back to normal with a look of sheer horror on his face. The class was taken aback as Izuku spoke. See, Mineta? Unlike the rest of you, I myself have no quirk. I am the current king of magic. I'm immortal as well. So if I were you, I'd listen and stop your perverted CRP. Mamita passed out upon hearing this, as Izuku sighed and warped him to Recovery Girl. He then looked at the rest of the class and explained not only his power, but his actual age. The students were blown away by this revelation and spent the next 10 minutes asking questions as Izuku smiled and answered their queries. He then took his seat and Aizawa explained about the upcoming provisional license exam and told the kids they needed to create ultimate moves and such. As the school day ended, the class retired to Heights Alliance as Izuku and Momo headed to Gym Gamma so Momo could study and practice her magic. So far, she was only able to use beginner spells, but she was learning pretty fast. Izuku was impressed not only by her working so diligently, but also by how her mind and heart are healing after the events of the summer camp and her family slaughter. They practiced until night had fallen. Momo was exhausted from her training, and Izuku used his healing magics to help her out before they made their way back to Heights Alliance. They entered the dorm, and the class were confused as to where the two had run off to. The pair explained, and Izuku seemed to just brush it all off before Mina Ashido decided to tease him, AMD Momo, but instead of the desired result, she was glared at by an annoyed Izuku. Miss Ashido, I'm not dating Momo. She is my student in the ways of magic. I have her permission to use her given name, and we were training. Not out on a date. Ashido smiled nervously at the deadly aura emanating from Izuku and quickly decided to apologize and no longer tease the terrifying mage in front of her. Momo smiled as inwardly she was still trying to understand her feelings of the godly magus. As the night wore on, the students all got to learn more about Izuku and his past. They panicked upon hearing how he was actually the one who created Yue and Nizu. As well, they finally heard the full story of how he came to be Momo's teacher. They had not heard much about the incident at camp that led Momo to becoming Izuku's student. The girls were saddened upon hearing about the experiences Momo had, both by being caged by Jigen and her family being slaughtered. They wept for their class representative. Momo cried some, but was thankful for her friends in class. They were very understanding and wished that none of what Momo suffered had happened. As the night wore on, it soon came time for bed. Izuku bid Momo a good night as she walked into her room and went to sleep. After that, Izuku stepped into his room only to be met by Mitsuki. "Hey, Izuku," she said as Izuku sighed. "Yes, Mitsuki? What is it you wish to speak with me about?" Mitsuki smiled softly before looking a bit depressed. "I came to thank you. Without you, I'd still be stuck searching for work. Sigh. I wish Masaru hadn't left me at the beginning of the year, but thanks to you, I finally have moved on. I apologize for the way Katsuki acted. I raised that brat better. But also speak to you about Momo Yaoyorozu." Izuku sighed as he figured this was to come about once Mitsuki was hired by Yue. "What about Momo?" he asked, though he knew what Mitsuki was about to say. "Izuku, in all the years I've known you, I have learned when you would try to push people away. I can tell you cherish her far more than for the fact she is your student. You may hide it well, but I can tell you have feelings for her. She too has feelings for you, but she is unable to process the information. You need to let her know how you feel and where you stand." Izuku groaned as he slumped down and headed to his couch. "You're not wrong, Mitsuki. But how can I do any of that without pushing her away?" Mitsuki sighed as she sat next to Izuku and wrapped an arm around him. "You do it by telling her the truth. Tell her how you feel about her, and explain what you wish to be with her. If you don't, she will be unable to focus on anything but her feelings. Let the girl know your feelings for her and what she means to you." Izuku nodded at her words before placing his arm around her. "You're not wrong, Mitsuki. Just I'm afraid if I do, as such it will backfire and force her away. I know how she feels, as it's impossible for me to not read her mind. She is always shouting and debating her feelings for me inside her head. To her, I am some divine savior who moved heaven and earth to save her. I have tried hard to ignore my emotions for her, but I will speak them once she's passed the provisional exam." Mitsuki smiled softly as she cuddled up against Izuku. "That's the mage I remember." "Hee hee." Izuku groaned and laid his head on hers. "You do know I can read your feelings and mind as well, right, Mitsuki?" Mitsuki sighed as she nodded. "I know, Izuku. You've always known how I felt about you. Yet regardless of that, you never once tried anything. I used to think it was due to not finding me attractive, but I learned it's the opposite, that you felt it was inappropriate given your feelings for Cerulia. Still, though, it would be amazing to have your kid." Izuku chuckled a bit at that as he looked towards his window. "Well, you're not wrong. I would enjoy having a child, but I think it better to wait and explain everything to Momo. Without both of us explaining our feelings to each other, and without her permission, I don't think I'd be okay with getting you preg without her approval." Mitsuki chuckled at his words. "You never change. Though after her, and I spoke this morning, I'm pretty sure she would not mind. However, you're right. It's better to do so with her approval than to just do it and cause her heart to break." The pair spoke for a while before it was time for them to sleep. Mitsuki left and went to her room as Izuku thought on the day's events, as well as his own emotions for Momo Yaoyorozu. "Once she gets her license, I will tell her. Not a moment before." He vowed to himself before laying in bed. Thoughts of his past and dreams of his future alongside her danced through his mind before sleep took him into its embrace. Meanwhile, Momo was having trouble sleeping as she still couldn't get Izuku out of her mind and still fought with herself about how she felt about him. She groaned as she tossed and turned for an hour before finally she fell asleep. She vowed to tell Izuku as soon as she got her provisional license. As the pair slept, we travel across the city to a dark room under a mansion. A white-haired girl with ruby-colored eyes and a horn on her head cried as she yelled in her mind for someone to save her from her hellish torture. She begged and pleaded like she has every night for the past 5 years for her suffering to end. Yet like always she would awake only for more tortures by the man in the plague doctor mask. She cried as she huddled on her bed, begging this universe for someone to save her or for her death. She was on the verge of giving up and leaving this mortal coil, but she knew even if she took her own life, the monster in the mask would just revive her for more torment and misery. As the days pass by, we find that A has grown stronger with all, but Momo and Izuku creating ultimate attacks via their quirks. Momo foregoing creating an ultimate attack with her quirk has begun combining magic with her quirk. It was a grand idea, as due to her quirk itself, she could easily make the magic seem like a natural evolution of her quirk, depending on the spell. Seeing as her quirk allows for the creation of anything, she knows the atomical makeup, for all she need to do is use spells that involved liquids, solids, gases, and plasmas. She could trick people into believing it to be her quirk. She was ever grateful for Izuku coming up with the idea, as she was struggling to think up an idea for an ultimate. Izuku himself created a fictional quirk for himself called Magiki Rex. He literally just called his quirk Magic King in Latin, which incidentally was his true title, as he is the king of magic. While the masters are all very powerful ancient mages, not one of them could hold a candle to his power. On top of that, his intelligence quotient or IQ is well over 300, making him the smartest in the world. Well, to the layman anyway, as IQ is not the actual level of intelligence one has, but of one's reasoning ability, or in other words, gauging one's ability to make use of information and logic to answer queries or predict things. Still, if one could gauge one's actual intelligence, then Izuku most definitely would have a lead by far. Anyway, by others who do not know magic truly exists, they'd assume it's just a quirk, especially upon looking up his quirk info. The day before the provisional exam, Momo, having been curious for weeks as to how Izuku knew Mitsuki and Katsuki Bakugo, she asked him while sitting on his sofa in his room. "Well, Momo, if I were to ask you how old do you think Mitsuki is, what would you say?" Momo thought on this for a moment, as Mitsuki, who had heard, was pouting while Izuku smirked seeing this. "Well, I would probably say mid-20s, as due to her quirk Glycerin, she looks younger than she is. But due to Katsuki being 16, I'd have to say she was in late 30s or early 40s at most." "But why do you ask?" Mitsuki sighs as Izuku looks to Momo. Very logical thinking Momo, but in truth Mitsuki is over 1,000 years old. She is a very powerful witch in her own right. And a few years back she used the magic I taught her to give herself a quirk. Although the quirk is not really why she appears so young, but due to her magical abilities. Momo was shocked, and when Mitsuki groaned a while about Izuku telling her secrets, she yelped in surprise, as she had not known Mitsuki was there. "Oh dear me, I did not mean to embarrass you, Mitsuki. I apologize," she squeaked out. Mitsuki just sighed and walked to the sofa, sitting on the opposite side of Izuku. "Sigh. It's fine, Momo. It's not really your fault for being curious about how Aizen knows me and Katsuki. Though you could have been gentler with revealing that, Izuku." She pouted as she slapped his arm. Izuku chuckled as Momo let out a sigh of relief at not angering a powerful witch. "True, but where's the fun in that, Mitsuki?" He giggled as Mitsuki groaned. She took a breath and spoke to Momo. "As to answer your question, Momo, Izuku found me when I was very young. I had been captured by an evil shogun stealing food from his stock to survive. My parents had been slain in battle, and I had no way to work for food due to my age. One night, as I was slaving away, cleaning up more purposeful messes the shogun had made, his third son, who was a very powerful samurai, had just returned from an ambush that resulted in all of his men being slain. After his return, and they went to bed for the night, making several large messes, I began to clean them up. What I had not known at the time was only the shogun went to bed. His son, having seen me, did something rare upon samurai. See, most samurai were essentially only interested in women when they had to continue the family line. Well, this night he decided he was tired of the standard X with his senseis and the young boys he'd trained to become samurai. He snuck up behind me and placed his wakizashi against my spine. He ordered me to go outside to one of the storage shacks for food. He made me undress, then turn to face him. As I did, I saw the look of a devil upon his face. He eyed me over with a disgusting smile as he disrobed, revealing his minute pages. He grabbed me by the throat and demanded I get on my knees and worship his mighty dragon, as he called it. Scared for my life and not seeing anyone nearby willing to help, I got down on my knees. But just before I was made to put that in my mouth, a booming voice full of power and rage blasted through the area. Mitsuki said as tears fell down her face, as well as Momo's. A look of rage etched itself on Izuku's. He placed an arm around both women's shoulders and pulled them to him. Mitsuki continued her sad tale as Momo thought on the horrors the bubbly, teasing Mitsuki must have faced back then. How dare you try to force a child to do as such, you disgusting monster. I'll kill you and your entire male line. The voice shouted as the entirety of the buildings shook from the power in his voice. The shogun and his men raised the alarms, and the shogun's son began to tremble in fear, and that demonic visage was replaced by utter terror. I froze, not sure what to do, and suddenly a man in white robes with a mask over his face appeared next to me and the son. No, not possible. I saw you die. The son shrieked as he tried to run, only to be held by an invisible voice as he howled in fear, demanding to be set free. I can't die, fool. I'm immortal. I warned you to change your ways, boy. Yet here you are about to assault a little worker girl. Miss, please put these on, he said when he snapped his fingers. In front of me, a mysteriously gleaming set of pink and yellow robes appeared with a pink mask. I thanked the man and got dressed as he spoke to the son. Time for the lineage to end. For failing to change. For all the evil acts you've performed. For the young miss, I take your life and that of your diabolical father and brothers. He roared before he fired off some glowing light, disintegrating the monster. I was scared, but when the man looked towards me and knelt down, I felt strangely safe. As I eyed the man over, he took off his mask. I was in awe at the powerful, handsome boy before me, as well as surprised as he looked only a few years my elder. Miss, please wait here as I take care of the rest. Soon as I finish, I shall return, and we can leave this wretched place. I know you have questions, and I promise to answer them one and all. So wait for me, please, young miss. I nodded, unable to speak, as tears flowed. I heard the din of battle and mysterious sounds, as well as those of flames and lightning and powerful wind. In a matter of minutes, the boys slew the entirety of the guards, Shogun and his sons, and leveled the entire building. Only the women who were not cruel and vicious were left standing. Momo was entranced by this tale. It resonated with her, as she too had nearly been assaulted by a demonic man before Izuku saved her life. Mitsuki smiled softly as she spoke. Now, young miss, may I know your name? He said as he yet again appeared out of thin air. I jumped in shock before I spoke. I'm Mitsuki, my lord, I said shyly as he laughed a bit. Very well, beautiful Mitsuki. But please, I'm no lord. My name is Izuku. What do you say we leave this place? He asked as I blushed. I nodded as he placed a strong hand on my shoulder. In the blink of an eye, Izuku and I appeared at his home, the very same one you went to. From then on, he explained who he was and how I too could become able to use magic. For the next 50 years, he taught me almost every spell he knew. Some I chose not to learn or was incapable of performing. Momo smiled, as did Izuku upon the end of her tale. So it's not a recent thing that Izuku saved someone, she said as Izuku nodded and Mitsuki dried her eyes. Correct, Momo, and ever since that day, he saved me. It's been us as friends and siblings in his eyes. For well over a millennia, Mitsuki said with a bit of a sigh. Momo could tell from how Mitsuki always spoke of Izuku, she yearned for more than just friendship or a brother-sister relationship with her savior. I see. So that explains how he knew you too, right? Momo asked as Izuku let out a sharp exhale. Confused, Momo looked from Izuku to Mitsuki, both looking sad. Actually, Momo, I had not been in Japan until roughly the week before the start of the school year. I was gone from here for the past 50 years. I had gone to the ruins of my forgotten kingdom on another pilgrimage, said Izuku, and Mitsuki, seeing the obvious question, spoke. Every 100 years since he awoke from his mystic coma, Izuku would take a pilgrimage to his old kingdom to remember and convene with those who died at the hands of Jigen and his men. This time, though, was his longest ever absence from Japan. Momo was slowly understanding things, but asked why it lasted so long. Well, that actually has multiple answers. See, I went there originally with Nana Shimura, and a decade later, she brought a young man named Toshinori Yagi, aka All Might, to train his quirk and body. At that point in time, Nana had just gone through a very hard experience involving her family. So I took the pair in to help restore her mind and try to help raise the brat properly before his quirk appeared. Momo nodded and smiled before going blank. Wait, All Might's name really is Toshinori Yagi? So that's how you knew him when we were in Nizu's office? She exclaimed, causing both Mitsuki and Izuku to nod in affirmation. Her mind was working fast when she remembered something. But how come he didn't remember you? Izuku smirked at that as Mitsuki guffawed. Because I replaced all his memories of me after he manifested his quirk, said a smirking Izuku, knocking Momo's brain out of her head. After reinserting her brain and it finished reinstalling, Momo laughed gleefully before panicking. Hold up, you can modify people's memories? Izuku's expression grew serious. Yes, I can. I don't do it very often as it's cruel to do. I did so in Toshinori's case, for he wasn't careful, and I learned some of his past actions and his greedy desires. Mitsuki sighed as Momo was in shock. You see, Momo, there's things no one but Izuku and myself know of Toshinori on top of his secret quirk that only a handful of people know. Izuku, she deserves to know the truth of OFA and then the truth of Toshinori, Mitsuki said somberly. Izuku sighed as he nodded and explained everything about OFA and AFO. Momo was broken upon learning the truths of Toshinori and his quirk. As she digested that, Izuku spoke. What no one else knows was he didn't desire to gain OFA at first, but once told about it by Nana, his greed and past made him desire it for more, let's say, devious reasons. His life before meeting Nana was cruel, but back then quirkless weren't as abused and mistreated as they are now, even here in Japan. Anyway, he had committed crimes from mugging to illegal dealing to even a murder. I tried to explain this to Nana, but she refused to believe me. She thought it was just me trying to back out of the promise to train him and protect him on his heroic path. I was stuck between staying loyal and honoring my oath to Nana and preventing the actions of a villain. Momo was tearing up after Izuku explained the details in every crime Toshinori committed before getting OFA and after obtaining it. She, along with all the peoples in the world except Izuku and Mitsuki, and most likely the evil mages in AFO, were tricked by All Might. Once he finished explaining that, he spoke for why he stayed away so long. Since I could not divine an answer, I let Toshi go. I communed with the spirits of my fallen kingdom for 50 years. Normally, I never stay for more than 10 to 15 years. But this time I needed to know what path to take when I returned to the world, as well as creating a spell to find Cerulea's descendant. After you all take the provisional licensing exam, I will show the world his true past minus my involvement. I'll show every crime and tell the world his secrets and his quirk status. Momo was stunned by these revelations, as anyone would he. As Izuku then spoke of how he knew Katsuki. Now to answer how I knew Katsuki. Once I returned to Japan, I met with Mitsuki after punishing Truman for lying to me. She introduced me to her brat and told me how he was accepted into UA. Masaru, her husband, had left, and she was raising him on her own. I peered into the brat's mind and saw all his crimes. I told Mitsuki the majority of them, and she was enraged. As she was not able to read minds, she never knew. I made the boy swear to never cause trouble for my school after showing him my power and the memories of me creating and running UA. He, for the entire time, has been causing issues with the students as well as staff. By actively leaving with the love, I had enough of his childish behavior. Mitsuki and Niza decided what to do once I expelled him. However, upon learning the full extent of his crimes, specifically against Mitsuki's friend Inko and her daughter, it was decided he will go to Tartarus. After that, I decided to have Mitsuki hired here. Does that answer all your questions, Momo? Momo was staring with her mouth agape as all the revealed info ran through her mind. She just nodded as she closed her mouth. Aizu, I think you broke her again. said Mitsuki with a slight giggle as she rested her head on Izuku's shoulder and wrapped her fingers in his. After her mind finished digesting the info, Momo noticed this and was not sure how to feel about the way Mitsuki acted around Izuku. Mitsuki looked at her, then into Izuku's eyes, and spoke. Izuku, I think it's time to tell her, as she deserves to know. Izuku took a deep breath and sighed. Izuku pulled his arms from the two women's shoulders and turned to face Momo. He grabbed her hands and spoke from his heart as Momo blushed. Momo Yaoyorozu, there is another matter to discuss. I am not quite sure how to say this, as I haven't felt the way I have since saving you and training you in the ways of magic. The last time I felt this way was 1,000 years ago. Momo began blushing wildly and swallowing hard. She was not sure what he was going to say. Since I rescued you and have helped you and trained you, my ancient heart has begun to stir to life once more. I know the ways you feel about me, as your mental shouts are so powerful I cannot ignore them. I can't go a day without thinking about you and dreading missing you. Not in the ways of students, but the simple things, like your smile, the cute way you laugh, and your excitement to see me. Momo, before I say what the words you deserve to hear, I must tell you, I am not some divine savior blessed by the gods. I'm immortal, yes, nearly infinite in power, but I'm still just a man. I am no god. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes and bleed, just like any other human. However, I also have emotions like any other man or woman. In the time we've known one another, I, too, have began to feel love once again. I've not felt this way since I discovered Cerulia passed away. I love you, Momo Yaoyorozu, and I wish to be with you for the rest of our days. Momo went blank, unable to think or speak, as she blushed harder and steam shot from her ears. Her legs weakened, and yet her heart pounded harder than ever before. The words flowered through her mind as she began to feel lighter than air. You love me? Was all she could ask as her brain finished rebooting. Yes, Momo Yaoyorozu. I love you. Momo absorbed those words for a moment before an amazing bright smile beamed across her face. I love you too, Izuku. I have for weeks, but I did not know how to tell you, she said, smiling bright before she saw Mitsuki and began to sadden. Yuti, what about Mitsuki's feelings, Izuku? She asked sadly. After all, he has known her for over a millennia. She felt as if she would be stealing him. Momo, Izuku and I both knew how you felt. Izuku himself always has known how I loved him for a millennia. He wanted to let you know his feelings for you before we spoke the next part, she said, smiling while happy tears fell from her eyes. Momo swallowed hard as she felt as though her world was about to fall apart. Momo, I will never lie to you. I love you and I love Mitsuki. I have loved her almost as long as she has loved me. But in my despair from losing Cerulia, I pushed my emotions down. But after saving you, this ancient heart of mine was unable to push my feelings away any longer. So I make a selfish request, if I may. He stopped as his mind began to run scenarios on how best to ask what he wishes to. He means to say, he cannot choose just one of us, Momo. So the pair of us have a choice to make concerning our love for our man. Izuku sighed as he grabbed the bridge of his nose. Momo was catching on to what they meant, and she began to think it through. She went through many situations in her mind before smiling with tears flowing. I accept. I have no desire to hurt your feelings, Izuku, or yours, Mitsuki. I could never take your man or be happy if you took him from me. I will gladly share him with you. I have no problem with this, she said as that effervescent smile glowed in the room, enticing an even brighter smile from Izuku and Mitsuki. You're sure, Momo? This doesn't bother you? He asked as his smile faltered for a moment. Yes, Izuku. I love you, and I know Mitsuki loves you as well. As long as the three of us are together, I have no issues with this. She would make an amazing sister wife. The lover triune all chuckled and smiled before they hugged each other in a big, tight group hug. After they broke the hug, Izuku looked deep into her onyx eyes, and before Momo knew what was happening, their lips met in a massive surge of electricity and passion. The pair kissed for over 5 minutes, and all Momo felt was as if she were soaring through the universe, locked in an eternal loving embrace and kiss as their heartbeats blew the cosmos into being, forming planets from their combined love. Once they finally broke the kiss, the pair were genuinely smiling as they were breathless. "Aizu, that was hot," exclaimed Mitsuki as she had a lustful grin on her face and licked her lips. "How'd it feel, Momo?" she asked as Momo smiled breathlessly. "It was the most amazing thing I've ever felt, Mitsuki," she said as she slowly regained her breath. Mitsuki smirked before she quickly sat across Izuku's lap with her arms wrapped around his neck and her legs wrapped around his waist, surprising the two others. "Well then, I guess I better have a crack at them lips then," she said with passionate lust as she quickly kissed Izuku deeply. Her eyes widened as she felt as though they were surrounded by massive fireworks, erupting all around them before they dove through the sea of love and swam through its entirety. Mitsuki squeaked the entire time as she felt something large pressing against her folds. She grinded on him as they broke the kiss, making Momo go crimson and try to look away. Izuku grabbed Mitsuki's hips and held her still as he squeaked from her actions. Catching his breath while Mitsuki calmed herself, she finally realized what she had been doing and apologized to the pair. "Sorry you too. Guess I got a bit excited. Been waiting a millennia for that," she said as she sweat dropped. Izuku lifted her off his waist, and both women noticed the massive bulge in his pants. They went wide-eyed and drooled a bit as Izuku apologized. Dude is 3,000 years old and can still get embarrassed." After the trio calmed down, they noticed the time. Night had fallen as it was time for dinner. They sighed and made their way downstairs to eat. After dinner, they once more returned to Izuku's room. Mitsuki shuffled her feet, and Izuku blushed a bit. He looked at Momo and spoke. Momo?" "Mitsuki kinda wants to," he tried to say as Momo blushed harder, and even Mitsuki was neon red. "Oh, I see. Well, I'm seeing as you're both old enough and smart enough, I have no issues if you do that stuff. As I'm not ready for such a thing just yet," she said with a close-eyed, smiling while rubbing the back of her neck. Mitsuki smiled as she let out a husky breath. They spoke for a few minutes before Momo retired to her room after kissing Izuku goodnight. Well, then Izuku, are you ready for this?" Mitsuki asked as she drooled a bit with a wolfish gleam to her eyes. I think I am." Think you can handle having another kid, Mitsu?" he asked as he pulled off his top. Mitsuki smiled as she blinked a bit before her grin grew. "You know what I really am, Aizu," she said as she used her magic to lock the door before pulling off her shirt and grabbing her undergarment-covered melons as she squeaked. "Think you ready for these, big boy?" she teased as Izuku nodded, staring right at them. Mitsuki smirked even more as she took off her garment, unleashing those massive milky orbs for him to admire. Her massive melons appeared even more so due to her small nips and areola. "I have a feeling we're going to enjoy this," said Izuku with a small smile as he grabbed the waistbands of his boxers and pants. Mitsuki knew from when she straddled Izuku earlier that he had a large bulge in his shorts. Yet when he took his pants and boxers off, her eyes almost shot out of her head. Standing there was the muscular form of Izuku and his 11-inch pee-pee fully up. Her nose was barely able to contain the vital fluid that wished to flow as her face flushed a brilliant crimson. "Holy hell, that's huge, Aizu," she shouted as she stared at it. Izuku chuckled a bit as he blushed some. Thanks, Izuku said as he scratched his cheek. No wonder you gotta be the king of magic with such a resplendent one, my liege," said Mitsuki as she smiled before she got down on her knees and placed her hand round his pee-pee, eliciting a squeak from Izuku. "Oh my, so rigid. So it's not just your appearance that remains youthful, but this monster has as well," she asked as she began to slide him. That feels good. Well, my little witch, if you must know then, yes," he said as Mitsuki eyed the bed and smirked. "Then let's do this good and proper, my liege." She said as she stood up and kept a hand gripping his pee-pee as she sauntered to the bed, pulling him with her by it. Izuku smirked as he could already see what she wished to do. Playing along, he went with her and sat on the edge of the bed with his legs apart so she could kneel in front of him. She removed her skirt and thong before kneeling down with a Cheshire grin. Izuku, smiling at her, reached down and grabbed her mountainous melons as he fondled them for a moment, causing her to squeak seductively. "Aizu, you really know how to make my melons feel good," she says as he chuckled a bit. Well, I can't be the only one that feels good from tonight's activities, he says as she snorts a bit before he lets go and nods. Mitsuki wraps her melons around his stiff wood and begins to pump them up and down. Squeaking, Izuku couldn't take his eyes off Mitsuki as she sped up a bit. Got him. Those feel amazing, Mitsu, he said as she smiled up at him. Glad you like them, Izuku, she said with a blush across her face. After a couple minutes, she let go of her melons and began to wipe his pee-pee, coating it with her saliva. Once done, she looking up at him and winking as she took him in her mouth. Oh, that feels good, he exclaimed as she took over half his length in at once. She slowly began to back her head up as she got to only have his head in her mouth. She once more took in as much as she could. Izuku was in intense pleasure as she got even more of his length in her mouth. She sped up a bit as she started bobbing up and down on his pee-pee, and in a few moments she could inhale all 11 inches. Izuku was in heaven as she swallowed his pee-pee, but what he found most pleasurable was the thing she thought specifically so he could read her. Oh, Aizu, I love this massive beast you have. I've never had one even half this size to try and please. I can't wait to swallow every drop of your delicious seed out and swallow it. Give me that sweet load, Izuku, my love. Izuku was staring wide-eyed as she changed her speed at random as she opened and closed her throat around him while her tongue twirled against it. While she was working that pee-pee, Lala Legend, one hand was playing with her melon and the other was fingering her. The pair were squeaking like wild, especially as Izuku fondled her other melons and played with her nip. After several minutes passed, both were nearing their peak. Oh, Mitsu, I'm going to release. He grunted as he could see her eyes shine with stars in them. Me too, Aizu. He could hold no longer and grabbed the back of her head, holding her in place as he shot reams of seed down her throat. As soon as he started to shoot his load, she squeaked loud as her pleasure shot waves of pleasure through her like never before. She was amazed the amount he produced as she swallowed one mouthful, and yet he filled her mouth up again while her eyes went wide. Once she swallowed every drop, Izuku, the pair were both breathing heavy as he let her head go. She cleaned the remnants off his still hard pee-pee as she took her head off it. God, Izuku, how did you have so much in you? 3 times. 3 times you fill my mouth with you thick, sticky load. That's crazy, she said after catching her breath, eliciting a chuckle from Izuku. About that, let's just say I have not released in a while, he said, making her laugh. Well, then hope that means you're willing to do what you teased the first day we got here, Mr. Magic King, she said, drooling a bit. Izuku smiled as he remembered what she meant. Well, seeing as Momo and you both earlier today had same idea on me giving you a kid, I see no reason to back out. That surprised Mitsuki, but then again Momo was not ready for either doing it or a child that made some sense, especially given what they talked on when alone that first day in the dorms. Well, then let it never be, said you do not keep your word, Izuku, she said as she got on the bed with him. True, HM. So any requests on positions, my dear? Mitsuki chuckled at his words, before she blushed a bit at how he had even bothered to ask, as normally the men she was with just decided and paid no attention to her wants. She thought for a moment a few different positions she had read about. Izuku smiled warmly at that as he read her thoughts. Well, I am rather unique then, but I like your ideas, so why not both? Mitsuki chuckled at his reaction to her thoughts on his asking her position at first, then blushed again at his question. Really? You don't mind? She asked before even registering she did. Well, Mitsu, I have no complaints, as the only one I did anything with was Cerulia. Granted, I don't have much experience in it, as we did it only 3 times. Mitsuki was actually surprised at his words. She had not thought he was only close with a woman was with Cerulia, but then again he was always so focused on either finding her or her descendants, so it made sense. So basically you're almost a virgin, Sorry, not laughing at you, Aizu. Just kind of surprised. As handsome and heroic as you are, I'd have figured in at least the last millennia you'd have been with a woman. Izuku smiled softly as he shrugged his shoulders, saying, Well, ever since finding out Cerulia passed on, I haven't spent much time around any woman aside from you. My time with Nana Shimura and Momo Yerozu was the only other times I spent with women for more than about an hour. That blew her mind. She was amazed that someone as awe-inspiring and powerful as he would have had some form of relationship when not with her. I see. Well then why not butterfly first? She asked nervously. Izuku smiled at her and nodded an affirmative. Mitsuki laid on her back as Izuku took the typical position with him being top except staying on his knees. He placed himself at her entrance, and she had several thoughts dance across the edge of her mind. Once she cleared her mind, she told him to put it in. He smiled at her as he entered her in one push down to the base as they both squeaked. Holy, you're a huge Aizu, she said in a breathy squeak. Izuku smirked as he looked her in the eyes. Well, that's good to know, I suppose, he said as he lifted her sensuous legs along with her until she placed the backs of her legs over her shoulders. The pair gazed into each other's eyes as the pair pushed into one another. His hands resting on the bed as he went deep into her, drawing passionate squeaks from her as her melons swayed back and forth. They both felt as though they saw the memories of their time together up to this point in the other's eyes as they each squeaked, as every push was as if a hammer and chisel were carving their eternal love into one another's hearts. Fuck yes, God, you're amazing, Aizu, said Mitsuki as they kept their pushes in tune with each other. As are you, Mitsuo. The pair were lost to the ebbs and flow of time as the slow and passionate lovemaking continued, and soon Mitsuki felt the pleasure coming, but was not prepared for how powerful it would be. Oh, he sees Aizu, she shouted as the pulses of pleasure override her mind as the greatest one of her life rocked her. The pair stopped their movements as Mitsuki was breathing ragged. Hell, Aizu, how the hell are you so good at this? She asked between breaths. Izuku chuckled as he looked a bit embarrassed with a blush on his cheeks. I didn't know I was he said as Mitsuki slowly recovered before telling him to start again. For another long stretch of time, Mitsuki had several pleasure as they went at it before both were ready to their peak. He grunted out as she could only say me too. Their combined squeaks lifted in pitch as he unloaded into her with one final push, driving both of them out of breath by the time their peaks finished. Izuku pulled out of her and laid beside her as they both gathered their breath back. They eyed the other as they were covered in a slick sheen of sweat across their bodies and soaking their hair. Not expecting they'd both be so exhausted, it was only then that they realized how much time had actually passed. Jesus Christ, said Mitsuki as she saw the clock and pointed out to Izuku. 2 hours, Aizu. We've been doing for 2 god hours, making even Izuku surprised at that. Guess we just got so into it we didn't feel the time go by. Although that does explain why we're both exhausted. Mitsuki was not going to deny that. She was not only covered in sweat, but she was positive she would be limping quite a bit tomorrow. Aizu? She called his name nervously. Izuku wrapped her in a hug as he smiled softly looking at her. I know, Mitsu. It's fine. Fairly sure we're both too worn out to go another round. She let out a sigh of relief that he wasn't upset that they didn't get to do more. As well happy at that, as most of the men she had been with demanded much more from her. He told you, I am unique. Though I think it best if we go ahead and get some sleep. We have fibs to do tomorrow, as you will be accompanying, is to the provisional exam. Mitsuki froze for a moment, not realizing she had to go too. But why? She asked, and was surprised at how fast Izuku's face went serious. I have a feeling the masters will be there and try yet again to take her life, Mitsu. I doubt they'd be a match for me. I'd rather have you there, just in case I need a hand. Mitsuki sighed as she had forgotten about the master's insane plan to reach godhood at the cost of many powerful mages' lives. Now I see why you chose the quirk title you did. To force their hand, correct, Aizu? She asked as the pair summoned some clothes to wear. Partially, yes. The second reason was to annoy Aizawa more. That boy takes things too seriously. So I thought it'd be hilarious. Should have seen his reaction when I told him what it meant. Mitsuki chuckled at his explanation as she finished putting her sleepwear on. Well then guess we get to mess up some dumbos if they were attacked the exam. Oh, if that happens, Aizu, can you make it so Katsuki can see me fight? That boy never believed me that I could use magic even after you showed him your power and told him I was one of the top 5 most powerful witches in history. Izuku laughed hard at that request. Why not? The brat needs to see how mess his life is going to be should he ever escape Tartarus. Mitsuki smirked as the pair snuggled up in bed. Straight. He already is scared to death of you and Nizu, but if that little twerp gets out, then I'll be the one to take vengeance for what he did to Inko and Mariko. Izuku smiled sadly at that. True. To do that simply because Mariko was not quirked is beyond cruel. Inko already had it rough with what Hisashi did. The pair spoke for a bit before deciding that after the day's events tomorrow, they'd take Momo to meet the mother and daughter before sleep tugged them into its embrace. As morning rose, the pair rose with it. Memories of the night's events made them both smile like fools. Mitsuki had a request of Izuku to do after she fetched Momo. Izuku chuckled as he tidied the place up. Momo was up already, as she was used to being awoken by Izuku early in the mornings. A mix of he usually was up before dawn, and the many nights she had nightmares, and he had to wake her to calm her down. Knock knock, said Mitsuki in her ever-bubbly voice. Momo sighed as she opened her door. Yes, Mitsuki? She asked, confused as to why she was there so early. Oh, there we are. I wanted to get you so. Izuku could show us something, if that was okay. She asked, a hint of nervousness in her voice. Momo nodded, as she still wasn't sure what was so important. The two went to Izuku's room, as he said, "Good morning" to Momo, and both women sat on the sofa. I take it she didn't fully explain, given how fast the two of you came here. Right, Momo? Mitsuki's sweat dropped before apologizing, making Izuku laugh. Well, it's fine. Now what she wanted to have me do was a test. Mitsuki deadpanned at that, as Momo looked on more confused than before, making Izuku laugh more. No, not that type. This is a spell with 100% certainty, he said as he raised his hand as it glowed white before Mitsuki stood up and stepped in front of Momo, a few feet away from her. She raised her tank top a little. Izuku stepped towards her and drew a magic symbol on her stomach, and the glow from his hand went from white to purple in color. Well, look at that, Momo. See the purple hue? She asked as Mitsuki smiled teary-eyed. Momo nodded, not yet understanding. Well, when it is purple, that means a woman is preg with twins, one of each, as in a boy and a girl. Momo went wide-eyed as she looked at Mitsuki, who nodded. She jumped up and hugged her as she was crying happy tears along with her. I'm so happy for you, Mitsuki, she shrieked as Izuku chuckled and Mitsuki thanked her. Before Izuku shushed the pair with a serious expression in his face. Well now, if you wish to keep all your appendages, I'd stop trying to spy on us, he said in a commanding voice. The women froze as they heard people eek and fall down. Mitsuki and Izuku both warped outside as Momo didn't know what to do before the pair brought there would be spies inside, making Momo glare daggers at them. Minoru Mineta and Denki Kaminari, looking scared to death at having been caught spying on the trio, were dragged before her. Well, Grapist and Zapnuts, it seems you fools did not believe me when I explained who I was and my true power. So I guess another demonstration is in store, said Izuku as he glared at them with a death stare so powerful it would freeze even Endeavor Solid. The boys began begging and pleading for leniency and mercy, and with a vicious sneer Mitsuki spoke. Oh, I know what we should do with these perverse monsters, Aizu. Let's turn them into girls and toss them into the boys' locker room, naked, as we lock the door. Momo cackled at this before she added her own punishment idea. Oh no, Mitsuki. You're on the right track, but I'll do you one better. Izuku, we turn them into girls, yes, but then you send them to a men's prison showers. The boys paled at that and doubled their efforts to try and say anything in order to placate the triune of angered magi. Oh, nice touch, but I think I got one better. We turn them to girls and make it so any adult act is excruciatingly painful, then toss them into a place with a sign saying they can only have it with men who have STDs. If they return with any less than 27 STDs, we send them back for another week. The boys chose that exact moment to void everything and pass out. Sighing, Izuku removed the pair of the last 30 minutes of memory and replaced them with memories of eating each other's puh and washing it down with their pee. After telling the girls, they all died laughing before Izuku used some magic to clean up the room, but not the boys. Mitsuki then levitated the pair as Izuku continued cleaning, and she warped them into the common room. Being the only ones awake at this time, they had the complete joy of telling the rest of 1A about the forced memories the boys had and laughed hard. The trio got dressed and made their way downstairs as the boys were still unconscious in the middle of the room, so they waited for the rest of class to make its way downstairs. 10 minutes later, the other 16 kids of 1A arrived to a horrid sight and smell. "Jesus, the hell smells like death?" asked a disgusted Jiro, making the three mages laugh hard enough to wake the boys. Izuku then smiled as he looked at the class and spoke. "Sorry to have left them unwashed, but we needed the rest of you here to make sure these boys never do their disgusting adult acts again. You see, we came down here and saw these two eating each other's feces and drinking each other's urine." The class looked shocked, but then became sick upon seeing the boys blush and unable to look them in the eyes. "Oh my God, what the?" shouted the 16 other members of 1A as they realized by the reactions of the two pervs it was fact, even though in reality it never happened. They quickly made the boys go shower as Izuku and Mitsuki used their magic to clean the room. After that event, the kids got changed into their school uniforms and made their way to the buses. Aizawa groaned as he had been told about what the pervs did, and he immediately looked at Izuku, who snickered and told him mentally what he did. "Seriously, what kind of punishment is that for spying on you?" asked Aizawa, and Izuku shrugged his shoulders before saying, "Well, it could have been worse," as he and his two girlfriends sat down with one on either side of Izuku. "Question, Aizawa-sensei?" asked Ida as Aizawa sighed and asked what. "Why is Mrs. Bakugo coming with us?" Aizawa grumbled before Izuku spoke. "One, her name is not Bakugi, as she's divorcee, Ida. 2, she is coming with us because I decided to have her join as to help keep you all in line. Especially Mineta and Kaminari after their extracurricular activities this morning." Ida, unable to see through that, just accepted the explanation and sat back down. Even Jiro accepted it, as she couldn't detect a lie due to him casting a spell to prevent her from detecting his lie. After that, the rest of the trip went as planned, as did the first part of the provisional exam. Well, minus the two pervs. They failed the Einital test. The rest of class passed the first part, but time came for the second. As they were taking the exam, Izuku and Momo suddenly felt massive magic making its way to the test site. Mitsuki warned Aizawa and the test officials just in time for a group of mages arrived. 10 in total. A second later, a massive man stood between them all. Izuku growled and barked for Mitsuki to join. He told Momo to stay oit, as the largest member was a master. Momo looked on horrified at the sight before her. "Well, I should introduce myself. I am Master Olgarth, and these 10 brave souls with me have come to finish what Lav started. Boys go wild," he yelled as the 10 robed figures rushed to the students. But before they could do any harm, they were met by a powerful barrier Izuku summoned as he charged a group of mages, and Mitsuki leapt to his side. "Sorry, Elgarth. These people are under my protection. I can't allow you or the rest of the masters to fulfill in your insane quest," said Izuku as he stared daggers at Olgarth, who shirked at the boy before him. Unsure why, as he felt a somewhat powerful magic from both Izuku and Mitsuki, but not even journeyman rank. "Oh, and what will you do, boy? I'm the strongest here in this stadium, if not city itself," he bellowed, trying to control his legs. Izuku smiled before summoning his robes and mask, making the master scream in fear as the pair also stopped concealing their full power. All the evil mages froze in fear. "No way. It's him. What do we do?" they asked of Olgarth, who snarled at the pair and then his subordinates. "Kill them," he bellowed, but the pair before them simply smiled before dispatching them all in an instant. "Sorry, Olgarth. You didn't really think you could do anything to us while I am here, did you?" Olgarth stepped back in fear, as before him stood Izuku, the king of magic himself. He knew he didn't stand a chance, but he lost his warper. Izuku and Mitsuki smiled devilishly. Olgarth screamed in horror, as all of his spells were like nothing to the duo. After a few minutes, he was but a single giant bruise before being sent straight to Terraris. "I'm surprised he was so weak, Izuku," said an astonished Mitsuki as Momo nodded. "Well, he was the weakest of the masters, so I'm not surprised," he said, chuckling. His girlfriend's daswalted across him. Izuku smirked at the way events have turned out since saving Momo. As not long after the capture, the entire class, Minus, Mineta, and Kaminari passed. The three laughed a bit before looking at Izuku's and Momo's provisional licenses. Meanwhile, yet again in that same dingy room, out tiny unicorn begs for aid or death. Either way, she didn't care which. It never comes to her. Slowly but surely she has given up on escape and a normal child. She just wanted the eternal agony to end. To be a normal child. To have friends. But Overhaul denied all of it. The last thoughts in her mind were of a white-haired youth saving her. She sighed before she slept. Our trio have woken up the day after the provisional exam and defeat of Olgarth. But one of the trio looks enraged. Aizu, what's wrong? Asked Mitsuki as she saw a look on his face she's not seen in over 1,000 years. Pure, unadulterated rage. I found her. The chronomancer Wish's daughter Eri. He said, trying to keep his rage in check. Chronomancer Wistia? Who is that? Asked Momo timidly. Mitsuki sighed. She was a very powerful quirk mage. Her quirk, while not strong on its own, when combined with her magic, gave her complete control over the near future and recent past. She could travel between up to 50 years in the future and back 30 years in the past. Her quirk itself was actually imminent precognition. We first met her 250 years ago. She was just a child, but was abandoned by her parents for being a quirked freak. However, she several years ago cast a spell on herself to look young as some masters tried to kidnap her. She was adopted by a Yakuza member after using her magic to imitate his and his wife's quirk, said Mitsuki sadly. Izuku took a few deep breaths. However, Momo, she lost her husband when her daughter's quirk activated. She knew her daughter wasn't at fault, but wanted Mitsuki here to raise her as the masters had found her again. But Masaru refused, and Mitsuki didn't feel comfortable magically forcing him. Well after that day, the Yakuza's new enforcer Overhaul, a.k.a. Kaichisaki, was ordered by the masters to steal the child and slay Wistia. He succeeded in both due to the aid of the master's strongest members, making a magic-canceling field. It was just powerful enough to keep Wish's power at bay. After she was almost slain, Mitsuki found her, but no sign of little Eri. He said, trying to hide the rage in his voice. I was not able to heal Wistia, and she soon passed away, killed by a spoiled brat and fools in order to kidnap and torture a child only a year old. Today, after Aizu shows All Might's true past minus his involvement, we should go seek her out. Momo, you need to stay here. Izuku has already constructed the most powerful narrier around the school, so no evil mages could enter, said an angry and tearful Mitsuki. Momo nodded as she looked at the ancient mages before her. You're hiding something, aren't you, Izuku? She asked, and Izuku sighed as he cracked his neck. Yes, but not out of secrecy. Out of empathy. The girl has been tortured daily since they kidnapped her. True horrendous torture. Overhaul has been using his quirk on her after slicing her apart to gain her vital fluid and quirk gene in an effort to make everyone quirkless except himself and his men. His quirk can disassemble and reassemble anything. Biologic or not doesn't matter. As well, he can reassemble it in any way he deems fit. In other words, he trailed off as his two lovers finished his sentence. He's been doing that to her all this time to destroy and remake her, essentially killing her. They said in disgust before Momo rushed to the toilet to vomit. Mitsuki wept as she remembers her past. I know, Mitsuki. It's similar to the power used to kill your parents. That's why you and I will take them on together. So I guess it's time I use my full power, as two masters of the highest order are with him at all times. He said as he accidentally crushed his glass before calming himself and repairing it while healing his injury. Momo had come back from vomiting, her face still green. I want to help, she said with as much determination as she can muster, making the two ancients smile. I figured that. Then how about this? Izuku said as he summoned a pair of rings to his hand. These, Momo, will make any who wears them invincible to all except those stronger than myself. Unless there's gods of evil involved, you and little Eri will be safe. We warp to her room, and you and her wear these, then I warp you two back here, he said calmly. Mitsuki smiled at that, as she remembered having to wear these along with an old friend of theirs that Izuku rescued and trained. I forgot you still had those, Izu. Man, it's been forever since I last saw them. But how did you get William's ring? He never gave it back before he returned to Scotland. She asked as Izuku chuckled. Simple. He left it in the ruins of my old kingdom when he felt strong enough to no longer require the ring. Momo was marveling over the engraving etched perfectly in the rings. Both had matching dragons with mystic symbols on them, but they both looked too big for her fingers. Not to worry, they'll fit themselves perfectly. To the wearer's fingers, Momo, said a cheery Mitsuki. Oh, hee. I see. Though how did you know I was wondering that? She asked, a bit of a blush to her cheeks. Mitsuki cackled hard at the question. I wondered exact same thing when he handed them to me and William all those years ago. Momo's sweat dropped at that, as she forgot Mitsuki said she too wore them, and the ancient witch's fingers are smaller than her own. The trio got dressed. Izuku in his white robes and mask, and Mitsuki in her pink and yellow robes and mask. Momo had ebony and blue robes with a sky blue mask. He then cast the spell to show all of the world all of Tashinori's sins before he warped to him and wrapped him in a quirk-canceling rope he made. Once finished, he then messaged Tsukachi to arrest Tashinori as he gave him his location. Once finished, he warped back to his room. Izuku asked if they were ready, and the pair agreed before he warped the three of them into the little girl's room not long after she was left there alone. Ahuri, you people? She stammered as she panicked. The three mages took off their masks. There before the snow-haired unicorn was that same white-haired, blue-eyed, powerful boy. Little Eri, we are friends of your mother. My name is Izuku. The blonde is Mitsuki, and the raven-haired one is Momo. We have come to take you from this place to somewhere safe. Momo, please hand her the ring and put yours on as well. Momo nodded as she put her ring on, and it shrank to her finger size as the air around her seemed to ripple. Then she knelt before Eri with the other ring. Hello, little Eri. I'm Momo. Eri, still stunned by seeing the boy from her dreams, was shocked further when he spoke in her mind. Yes, my little chronomancer, I am the one from your predictions. Momo Heat will protect you as Mitsuki, and I stop these villains who hurt you. You're safe, I promise, he said with as kind a smile and tone as he could convey. Okay, Izuku, I'll trust you all, she said as a little fire of hope ignited in her heart. She looked to Momo and held out her hand so as to have the ring put on it. As soon as it did, the same effect happens. What happened? She asked nervously. Mitsuki stepped to her and used a spell to summon a knife. Watch this little snowball, she said as she handed the blade to Momo, who smiled and did as she was asked by Izuku. She stabbed the blade into her chest, but instead of penetrating the flesh, it shattered to pieces. Eri was in awe at this, as she didn't understand what was going on, but somehow the girl before her was not hurt. This is from the rings we wear, Eri. Unless someone is stronger than Izuku, they cannot harm us with these on. Eri was floored by that. So with these on, I'm safe? The three mages smiled and nodded. Eri smiled tearfully at that fact. Izuku spoke quickly in a hushed tone. Eri, grab onto Momo, and I will send the two of you somewhere safe, okay? Eri nodded. And as soon as she grabbed Momo's hands, she heard a strange bamf noise and was sitting in an enormous room full of books and strange artifacts. Whoa, how do we get here, Momo? She asked quietly. Momo smiled and led her to a sofa to sit down. Simple. Myself, Mitsuki, and Izuku can use something your mother could call magic. Izuku is the very king of magic. Any type you can imagine he can use. He used a teleport spell to warp the two of us all the way here. I can't use much magic yet, but Izuku and Mitsuki are training me. Eri was stunned. All her life, she wished to use magic to make herself vanish or fly away from Overhaul. Yet not only was the white-haired boy able to use it, so could the two women he arrived with. My mommy old? She asked with a panicked stutter. Yes, Eri. What do you know of your mother? Momo asked warmly. Eri sighed and explained how she was always told she was cursed and abandoned by her mother. Momo grew irate and now understood just how much damage the girl has suffered, not just physically, but mentally. Momo sighed and used a telekinesis spell to summon the hologram device Izuku made years ago. She then performed the spell Izuku showed her before they came to save Eri and used it to start the machine. Eru watched on as it played the vast memories the pair had with Wistia. She saw her mother was powerful and loved her, and then how she was tricked and attacked by Overhaul and two robed figures before Mitsuki could save her. As well, she saw her mother's last wish. Save Eri. Please Mitsu, get Aizu, and save my beloved little Eri. Keep her safe. Before the disc ended, it left out the injuries and death of her mother, but Eri, having experienced the hurt Overhaul, knew what had happened. She wept for her mother's death and for realizing her mother wasn't the selfish woman who hated her. She loved her little daughter, but could not escape and protect her, so tried to give her to Mitsuki to raise with love. With her memory of a beloved mother who cherished her more than her own life fresh in her mind, she wept. I'm sorry, Eri. Mitsuki searched for you for years, but it wasn't until today that Izuku found you. Unlike Izuku, she cannot read minds, which made it easy for them to hide you from her. But nobody can hide anything from Izuku. No human on Earth is as strong as Izuku. So trust in him, Eri. He will stop Overhaul and those who help him. Momo said as she wrapped the little angel in a hug. Eri cried for a long time, but when the tears ended, she spoke. Thank you, Momo. Thank you. My mama did love me. She really did. She said happily. Meanwhile, as all that was happening, the ancient mages were decimating the Shaiha Saikai. They didn't even bother letting them live. Not after all the crimes they committed upon Eri and all the others they slaughtered and tortured through the years. It was an utter bloodbath in the complex. Soon only Overhaul, as well as the two masters, were all that remained. It's over, Kai Chisaki. You and your hatred for quirked humans will end this day, yelled Mitsuki as she glared at the monster who enjoyed mutilating little Eri. Izuku stepped forward and demanded the master's identities. Fine, Eternal Izuku. We are Masters Trogak and Afe. I am Trogak, the third stringist master. Afe is the fourth. Unlike Ulgarth, you shall not defeat us so easily, said Trogak with an arrogant smirk. He was expecting the pair before him to shrink in fear. But what he wasn't expecting was the massive look of rage and deathly aura to erupt from their greatest foe. Afe, as in the Celtic warrior Queen Afe, demanded the furious Izuku as both masters balked back. Mitsuki, too, was seething in rage. Yes, Izuku, but how do you know my name and title? Afe asked, nervously. Izuku Havib had enough, fired off his eraser spell on Overhaul, and bellowed a name Afe hasn't heard in 800 years. You betrayed William MacDonald. You will die this day, Brathadair. He roared as Afe quaked in fear at the massive power emitted from man. She forgot all about the man who rescued her and taught her magic after she slit his throat in his sleep to absorb his magical power to join the masters. No, how did you know? She demanded as Izuku stomped his way towards her. I was his sensei. I was the one who found his corpse. I was informed of his students' names and everyone, but you was free of treachery. None of them betrayed him, leaving only you, coward. Time for your karmic justice. He said before mentally saying, Mitsuki, take on Trogak. I'll handle this betrayer myself by right of master's revenge. As Afe tried to flee by flying away as fast as she could, Mitsuki glared at Trogak, and even though she yearned to be able to face Afe, she knew not to get involved in the ancient rite. Only the teacher of a slain student can avenge them if the teacher is still alive. She knew either way she was going to pay for her disgrace. Trogak, scared for Afe, looked towards the woman before him and chuckled. Huh, you can't hold a candle to me, woman. Afe is even stronger than you, and she cannot beat me in battle, he said with that same arrogant smile. Mitsuki sighed and took off her mask. Do you even know who I am, Trogak? If not, don't assume I have shown the limits of my power. Very few beings are stronger than me, she said with a cold stare as if trying to bore holes in his skull. Trogak, in his arrogance, cackled madly. How what's it matter what your arrogant name is, Beach? Only 3 men are stronger than me, and even Afe, who is the strongest which in this world, is far below me in power. He rattled off, while not even caring to pay attention to his foe. Oh, is she now? Let me ask you a quick question, Trogak. When did she surpass Mitsuki in terms of power? Trogak stopped dead upon the name of your he heard, before once again laughing like a mad fiend. Ha ha, That idiot has been dead for centuries. Afe is the strongest. She even slayed Mitsuki. His response made Mitsuki laugh long and hard, before she looked him in the eyes and told him, "Fine if you wish to think that, then cast Mage Identifier magic on this spell to see just exactly who I am," she said, raising her hand, and in the blink of an eye a cherry blossom appeared to grow from the palm of her hand until it was too large to fit. She sat it down and let it continue growing as Trogak did, and soon began to tremble. "No, not possible," he shrieked out as Mitsuki had a devilish grin on her face before she stopped hiding her full magical power. Trogak shook with fear as the woman bee for him was just as powerful as he was, if not more. "Oh, there we are. The right reaction. I hate to inform you, Troggy, but I never died and never met Afe until today. The harlot lied to you all, but this day will be both your last days. For Izuku will not let her live, nor will I allow you to live after killing Wistia and torturing her daughter. Say your prayers, little man, as we may be nearly equal in power. I am far more versed in magic," she said as she summoned a huge ball of water and filled it with lightning and metal spears before launching it at Trogak, who barely created a shield in time. Even though he did, the spell lasted longer than he anticipated, forcing him to warp behind Mitsuki, but once he did, he was met with a massive earthen fist that slammed into him, sending him careening through the walls of the compound. Mitsuki smirked as she warped through the building to land beside the master. How are you this strong?" he demanded as she smiled with her eyes shut and tick marks on her forehead. "I'm the strongest disciple of Izuku, even stronger than William was. For over 1,000 years I have trained with him and been his friend. He taught me spells that's not been seen in this world for thousands of years, such as this little wonder," she said as she snapped her fingers and drew a symbol in the air. From a symbol, a gate opened, releasing a massive robed skeleton wielding a sword in both hands. It stood 15 feet tall, eyes glowing like fire adorned in mystic armor. "What is that thing?" the master shouted as he flew back to dodge its blades. Mitsuki chuckled. "This Troggy is an ancient guardian. This one specifically is the guardian of soulstones. It is rather vicious, and once summoned will not stop until the enemy is not only dead but turned into a soulstone. Think you got what it takes to defeat it? As it can warp to find you anywhere. You cannot escape it and cannot banish it. Only Izuku has ever slain an ancient guardian, so unless you are his equal or a god, you stand little chance at besting it," she said with a cold tone bereft of emotion. Terrified, Trogak began casting all his powerful elemental attacks, only for them to mess all of nothing to the towering armored skeleton. "What? How did that do nothing?" he shouted as he warped away, only for the guardian to warp with him. Seconds later, he returned, as did the guardian. "I was not joking, Troggy. It's immune to all elements. If you cared to examine his armor, you'd have known that," she said with a bored yet infuriating Trogak to no end. He then began casting trap spells, which were sliced apart by the guardian. Fear building in the master's eyes, he started summoning various magical entities, yet they too were all destroyed by the monstrous guardian. "Submit. It's the only way the guardian will let you go," said Mitsuki with a sigh. Trogak, even as arrogant as he was, realized his chance to win was to try tricking the beast and to thinking he surrendered. He dropped to his hands and knees and began fouling submission with his head down. He had a Cheshire grin. But what he had not taken into account was what would happen if you lied to the monster. Suddenly, he was cleaved in half at the waist by the massive blades of the guardian. Why? He screamed in agony. Mitsuki sighed as the guardian stopped its movement, only to leave back through the gate it came from. "Sad little Troggy. You tried to fake your submission to the guardian, so he refused to accept it and left a lethal blow on you. I wonder if you figured out what will happen now, master?" she asked, comfy, while licking her lips. Trogak went wide-eyed as he felt his life-vital fluid ooze out from the wound as he coughed. "No, I wasn't supposed to die," he said as more and more of his vital fluid left him. Mitsuki knelt beside the master and placed her lips by his ear. "Neither was Wistia. So die, little master. Scream in despair and beg me to save your life. If you beg me enough, I may just let you live," she said as she smiled at the dying mage. "Please, I'll do anything if you Save my life. Mistress Mitsuki, he begged, and Mitsuki smirked. Even be my pleasure worker for the rest of your life, to use any way I see fit? She asked darkly as the mage shouted yes. Oh, very well, I suppose I will save you, little Troggy, she said, casting a spell to force the vital fluid back into him and cauterize the wound shut. Shouting in pain as the magic slowly sealed the wound shut, the master thought he was going to lose his mind before it ended. After 5 minutes, the spell was finished, leaving him out of breath. He thanked Mitsuki, who picked him up and slammed him down on the nearby desk, making him yelp. Don't thank me just yet. You're on a short leash, old chap. Once Izuku gets here, he will decide what to do with you. After all, with half your body gone, you're barely much of a mage. Only mages decide to keep you to make you swallow his massive wand every night. Man, I don't really care what he decides as long as it's just. Trogak began to panic as he tried to get up. Only then did he realize that he was not fully healed. What? Where's my legs? He asked as Mitsuki cackled, using telekinesis to lift his legs off the floor and show him. The master screamed as he realized he was tricked. He shouted at Mitsuki, calling her a liar and all manner of unappealing names as she smiled at the man. Really now, old boy? Would you prefer I kill you now without giving you the chance to be of use to us? Trogak balked at this as he wept. He shook his head as the tears flowed. Good. Then shut up and wait for Izuku. Afe, shortly after flying away from Izuku, was ensnared in a web of lightning, shocking her before being snatched by the throat. Now, little missy, I don't recall giving you permission to leave, said Izuku in a blood-chilling, emotionless voice, terrifying the witch. Let me go, damn it, she hissed out as Izuku sighed. Fine, but don't get mad when I do, he said, causing the witch to stare at him in shock before smiling when she felt him let go. But approximately 2 seconds later, she regretted it, as oddly she was encased in metal and falling to earth at insane speeds. She seemed so loud her vocal cords felt that they were going to snap. When a foot from the ground, she stopped in the air. Confused as she felt she wasn't moving anymore, she risked opening her eyes. Then not but a few inches from her was the floor. Wait, what's going on? She asked shakily. Izuku laughed as he lifted her all the way back up to him. Wow, so you lied about killing Mitsuki, and you're too weak to even break out of such a simple spell? He asked with a cheeky smile, scaring her by finding out she lied so easily when no one else ever did. What are you talking about? I did kill her, she yelled, trying to trick him. Dumbass, who do you think that female mage I came here with was? My student and friend Mitsuki herself. Afe freaked upon hearing this. No one ever said you taught her, she squeaked out. Izuku cackled at her words. No way, Sherlock, because the only ones who ever knew that are dead, including you and your partner Trogak. Afe howled in pain as she felt more lightning course through her body. But yet again, he ended it before it could do too much damage. Please? Let me eat. I'll do anything, just let me live, she begged as Izuku looked her dead in the eyes. No, by the right of master's revenge, I shall take your life for taking my student life. Only I have the right to kill you since you are the student of my student who you killed. You are going to die. That much is certain. Now be silent while I think of how to best kill you. She went wide-eyed as tears poured down her face. She whimpered at never knowing William's master was Izuku, nor knowing he trained Mitsuki as well. Damn it, why am I having to face this demon? I never did anything wrong. William deserved to die for not teaching me his most power spells. Mitsuki is beneath me. So why must I pay for killing William and tricking the masters into thinking I killed Mitsuki too? Not paying any attention to her surroundings until finishing her whining, she looked to Izuku only to see a face of pure fury and wrath incarnate. I can read minds, you stupid wench, he said in a phemonic voice in her mind, scaring her even more. She cried even more as Izuku smiled at her in a way that made her spine shiver. I have it. You will suffer the greatest death of all, the death of one's soul. Your body will live on racked with pain, everlasting, but your soul will be erased from existence. Is that a fair death in your eyes, Afe? She cried even more and thrashed around, clawing at Izuku, who was laughing at her tantrum. Oh, what's wrong, Brathadair? Do you not find it suitable? he asked as his face became as emotionless as the mask he wore. He waited for her to stop thrashing about before speaking again. By right, I will use a special spell Eve never had to use before. Betrayer's Torment, a special spell created by the original mage. It's meant to be used on those who have betrayed and killed their master or student. This will freeze you solid, then melt you with boiling hot magma. Nothing you say can or will prevent your death. You slayed an innocent man who taught you every spell you could learn from him. The other spells were genetic spells, and you are not of his lineage. Your greed cost him his life and hundreds of thousands of his people their lives until I managed to slay the demons that fed on his people that he was meant to destroy. If not for you, his children would not have been sold into slavery and killed, ending his family line forever. So do not attempt to beg or bribe me. Your life is null and void, Brathader, he said as he cast the one spell he always dreaded having to use. Slowly she from her feet to her head. Even as she was frozen solid, she was still alive as Izuku turned his neck to her, unable to watch the spell's effects. Tears streaming down his face, he felt out Mitsuki and told her telepathically what happened. She too was saddened to learn what the spell he used was to do. As Afe reached absolute zero, suddenly she felt intense heat melting her feet. Her mental screams and shouts filled Izuku's mind, and he could not tune them out. He stayed facing the opposite direction, but could feel her life slowly ending until finally it ran its course, leaving nothing but molten rock in her place. Izuku sighed as he cast a spell to turn the molten rock into a statue made of obsidian. Her shape and etched on it the words, "The corpse of Afe betrayed of the master warrior and wizard William MacDonald. May this sacrifice restore peace to those what her greed stole from this world." Appeared as if they were part of the stone's natural shape before he warped it to the ancient castle William once called home. He sighed again and warped to Mitsuki's side. Well, it is done, Mitsuki. Afe is no more. Oh, I see Trogak met his match. Oh, is he always this short? He asked with a Cheshire grin, eliciting a chuckle from Mitsuki. Hee. No, but this way's much funnier. You gonna make him your own personal worker for pleasure? She teased as Izuku howled with laughter. The whole time the tearful Trogak begging and pleading to be let go. No, Mitsuki, but what I will do is this, he said as he snatched the half-man by the throat and his eyes glowed with power. Mitsuki giggled, remembering the spell. Now tell me, Trogak, how do the masters plan to become the newest incarnation of the gods of evil? Trogak could feel the power forcing the words from his mouth and could not do anything to stop it. By absorbing the magic from the strongest mages and strongest magical family lines, they will then cast a spell to offer it to the gods of evil, forcing them to grant us their power, attaining godhood. Izuku listened to the words before a sad laughter escaped his throat, surprising Mitsuki and Trogak. Izu, what's so funny? She asked as Izuku sighed. The masters have been fooled. If they gave all that magical power to the gods of evil, it would only make them each many times more powerful, not give them the power of a god. In other words, you all got played, Trogak. As well, Momo's parents didn't even have magic in them, you fool. Only she had magic. Sigh. Trogak, where's the master's hideout? He asked as his power glowed in his eyes. Trogak tried to ignore the request for the information, but yet again he gave it up. Antarctica. There's a fort there hidden behind a barrier. That's where we are stationed. Izuku nodded and sighed as he told Mitsuki. You can do with him as you see fit, Mitsuki. Before sitting down on a chair nearby, Mitsuki smiled viciously as her eyes glowed crimson red. You heard him, Troggy. I seem to find only one thing suitable for punishment for one so arrogant as you, Troggy. Izuku smiled, knowing what was about to happen. Mitsuki cast her spell, and Trogak began to shape-shift. As the spell finished, there on the desk stood a tiny donkey. What did you do to me, woman? He shouted as Izuku and Mitsuki laughed. The furious tiny donkey stomped its hooves on the desk as it demanded to be turned back to normal. Izuku smirked at this. Oh, very well then. He snapped his fingers, and Trogak was back to his normal body with all his limbs intact. He let out a sigh of relief until he realized two things. One, he was still tiny, roughly about 8 inches tall, and two, he was not able to feel his manhood. Mitsuki cackled like mad as she pined to the now tiny as Hill Trogak as he pulled down his trousers, and instead of pee-pee and nuts he had a woman's part. The tiny mage roared as loud as his little lungs could, which barely registered in their ears. Izuku glared at the mage and snapped his fingers again, silencing the mage as he removed his mouth entirely. Enough, little mage. You are lucky I don't just kill you. Mitsuki, I've had my fun with him. Do with him as you wish. We got all the information from him that we needed, Izuku said as the mage wept. Mitsuki hardened her stare, and with a few swipes in the air, a second portal opened, sucking the mage into it. As Izuku returned his mouth mid-flight, he begged them not to, but was sucked into the vortex, never to be heard or seen in this world ever again. The pair sighed before they warped back to Izuku's room, leaving the Yakuza compound full of the corpses of the Shaiha Saikai, all save Overhaul and the former head of the Yakuza. Truman shortly after arrived with his men and handled the scene as best they could. Truman knew what went down as Izuku told him before they arrived on scene. The once powerful Yakuza was lost to Overhaul's greed and deal with the Masters. So, this was the end of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.